Spilling the tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Brought to you by J. Michael, fashion for everyone. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing today?
We are good. What do you have for us?
Fantastic. So the premier of the country has stressed that despite some rumors that are being circulated, the country is not broke. He did an interview with CMR on Friday, which we aired yesterday, basically saying that, listen, an email that he sent out to heads of departments and I guess chief officers, management and government, was simply asking them to try to not spend money if they don't have to. The government has about $50 million, in reserves, but he says that's not really a whole lot of money when you consider that the entire budget and expenditure for the government is like $1 billion. So, he says in light of the framework for fiscal responsibility, it's a great idea to tell people if you don't have to spend money, don't spend it. Let's find ways to save it and to be just a little bit more fiscally responsible.
So the government only has $50 million left?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know people that live here that have more money than the government.
Well, aren't you?
That's the case.
How do you know these people? Yeah, well,
I'm sure you do too, Sandy.
Well,
matter of fact, I know you do.
Yeah, this is part of his messaging is that, listen, it might sound like a lot of money to the average person, and maybe the average person also thinks that when you have extra money that you just spend it and that's the way to live your life. But he says that's not the way for governments to ever be responsible. So, they're paying their bills and everything, but they would like for people to still be a little bit conservative with their spending before, I guess, the year end. And the government's also actively working on the budget for the next 2-year period. So I think that has been something that's been taking up a lot of their time.
There are boats that dock here that are worth more than $50 million.
All right. So we've got a man who's been charged in the burglary of a restaurant and liquor store. So yes, what can I say? On Saturday, September the 9th, he was arrested after attempting to escape from officers on patrol in the District of West Bay. They were able to apprehend him. They said he became aggressive and attempted to escape from the officers, causing minor injury to one of the officers. And he was arrested initially on suspicion of burglary and for resisting arrest and assaulting police. And now the 42-year-old man has been formally charged with 2 counts of burglary in relation to 2 separate incidents. So they've gotten him off the road. There was an incident on Shedden Road and Martin Drive where that restaurant was broken into and cash and other items were taken. And then also a liquor store on North Church Street. So he is off of the streets of the Cayman Islands. So good news for the RCIPS. At least they've got one.
Yeah,
right.
That's good.
We'll keep working on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So 36 Haitian nationals and sort of regional news were sent back home after arriving in Jamaica on Friday or Saturday. They returned them very, very quickly. In fact, so they they came in on let me just double check. Right, on Saturday. And by yesterday morning, they were already leaving the country. They were repatriating them back home. So I included 24 men, 5 women, 5 girls, and 3 boys. Unfortunately, Jamaica has a very quick turnaround period with, Haitian refugees. Such a sad situation, really. But
kids on board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Let's end on a bit of good news this morning.
Yeah.
The 2023 Proud of Them nominations is officially open. So the Youth Services Unit is inviting the public to submit nominations for the Proud of Them awards. If you know of any young person aged 10 to 25 who's demonstrated excellence in 1 or a maximum of 2 categories, including academic, sports, culture, business, career, and community service, feel free to submit them for nomination. So it's now in its 10th year, and the program has honored the contributions of over 140 youth across the Cayman Islands. So this is fantastic. And I'm sure you guys have seen the billboards around the island. And this is a great opportunity to just highlight those young people for the positive things that they're doing.
Excellent. Proud of them.
Okay.
All right, Sandy.
We'll
thank
talk to you later.
We'll catch you
All right.
on Bobo 89.1 FM for your show.
All right, folks. Good morning, everyone. We're getting ready here in about 15 seconds to kick off, I should say, on radio. How's everybody doing today? Hope you guys are well. All right. Good morning.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's community radio.
We are still spilling the tea.
And committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman,
Live, direct.
it's the cold, hard truth. Now, join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
Just give me one quick second. I'm just grabbing all of our links for our WhatsApp group so we can send that to everyone. Make sure that everyone is live and direct. Give me one quick second here. Everything seems to be moving a little bit slower this morning. But yes, hope that you guys are having a fantastic day. I want to make sure that everyone who wishes to watch the program can quickly find us. So one of the things that we do every single morning for our WhatsApp news group is we send them the direct links so that they have zero issues locating us. So Shamari, I now see you. Very good. Let me just grab the YouTube one as well. So in case you don't know, some of you are listening on radio. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, every single morning, as well as Bobo 89.1 FM. So make sure that you actually, avail yourself of those options, because I know sometimes you might not be able to tune into the radio if you're at your desk at work. Maybe you don't even have a radio anymore at work. You can certainly listen. Well, listen, as long as you've got the internet at work, you can listen to the radio. There is a live stream online for Bobo. And then, of course, you can always listen to social media. Now, I'm aware that sometimes social media is blocked by your workplaces. They don't want you scrolling on Facebook all day long. Maybe they've got YouTube blocked because they're tired of everybody watching dance videos on YouTube. I don't know. But in any event, I'm happy to say that you've got multiple options available to you today. So, make sure that you avail yourself of those. And now I'm going to send out the links to everyone. And as you'll soon see, those of you watching on social, you'll see those numbers go up, because literally some people just sit back and wait until I send them the links. They don't even go searching for it. They're like, let me know once you've sent the links. Okay, so of course, today is Tuesday. And as you guys know, it is Rundown Tuesday. We've got Health City, who's going to be joining us here in just a second. These segments are, I think, appreciated by all. We all look forward to learning a thing or two about, good health and wellness and all of the amazing things that Health City has to offer the community. Now, I didn't get to really talk about this yet, but on Thursday of last week, I finally had an opportunity. I've been trying to get there to visit the Oncology Center there in right by Cayman Bay. So I think it's part of the Cayman Bay complex, in fact. And wow, it is. I was blown away. It's an amazing facility, so professionally done. The latest equipment, and having a tour of the facility and having the opportunity to speak with the people who are working there, who are making this service available to the people of the Cayman Islands, is just absolutely amazing. So we're going to actually be talking about oncology, surgery, and so on this morning. But it's just, I was blown away, that this is actually being offered on our small little island of like 70,000 people, that we have this cutting edge technology, which makes it so much easier for people to receive treatments without having to go overseas and incur expense and be away from their families and so on. So congratulations to Health City for doing this amazing job for opening this facility. And I was really proud to see, I don't know if you guys noticed the Facebook post that I put up yesterday, but I was really proud to see that they've actually dedicated the facility in honor of Mr. Gene Thompson, who passed away shortly before the official opening of that. So you guys will know that Mr. Thompson was, instrumental in getting Health City to the Cayman Islands. And despite the fact that he was no longer, at the time of his death, with that organization, they still honored him by, in fact, naming the facility after him. So it's the Gene Thompson Radiotherapy Center is the proper name of it. So again, kudos and congratulations to the Health City team. So good morning, Senor Shamari. How are you?
Good morning, Sandy. Good morning. I finally get to say my proper good morning after being off air for so long, seeing as my internet's working. I'm not running around. I made sure to put the dog in his section so he doesn't pull out the cords again. But it's really, really great to be here. And, it's a Tuesday morning, and I have my Miami Dolphins cup, seeing as we started the season on the right foot with a victory.
Yes.
This year we were going to win it all and go to the Super Bowl. So I have about 2 or 3 of these cups to have, morning coffee with you every Tuesday.
Okay, very, very good. So did they play one game already? I thought I saw people talking about it over the weekend. I'm not sure.
Sorry, say that again?
No, I was just wondering if they played a game this weekend already.
Yeah, we played on Sunday. We won.
Okay. Well,
First game of the season. So
yes,
we won a big game.
I thought I saw something for sure. All right.
Definitely.
So we've got we do have some guests visiting us this morning. And of course, Shamari, I was just talking about the oncology facility there, the radiotherapy, center. Just blown away and amazed at that.
And the funny thing is, right, whereby you would have seen the machine, which is called the LINAC, and there typically you would need to have one LINAC for 250,000 to 300,000 population in order to get the right volumes for that type of machinery. But Health City, as always, understanding where the gaps rest, looking into the rest of the Caribbean, and knowing that when it comes to cancer care or oncology, that's the highest priced item that you can actually go for, or modality, when you go to, for instance, the US. So we knew that you can't have like a third or a fifth of a LINAC. So we went ahead and made that investment to make sure that we could have that machine here. We could have comprehensive oncology treatment, because that's how you get your best outcomes. And that's why we went ahead and built it. And as you mentioned, obviously we honored the late Mr. Gene Thompson, naming it the Gene Thompson Radiotherapy Center, just based on the fact that obviously he was instrumental at the very beginning to make sure that Health City reached our shores. And it was just the right thing to do. So we always look as an organization to do the right thing, and bringing it here obviously was the first right, and naming it after him would have been that second right. And Sandy, you saw the facility. I apologize. I had another meeting that ran over. I would have come to meet you there, but you would have gotten to see obviously the whole facade, everything that happens with the machine, the fact that it's top notch, top quality. And now individuals no longer have to go overseas in order to get that care. One thing that really surprised us when we first started, obviously, we looked to see how many numbers of cancer patients that would actually need this modality would be needed. When we first started, we were blown away by persons who were already approved, long before we were ready and open to go overseas to get that treatment. And due to the fact that, may have been a single mother that didn't want to leave a child, or, because you have to do the different fractions over periods of time, even though after the first one, the fractions become less depending on the type of treatment that you're getting. You still have to go overseas. So people were afraid to, leave their job, and I should say, to leave their jobs for so long. So there were persons who were approved for months at a time that were putting it off. So it just shows you that obviously being here now is going to give persons access to the radiotherapy machine that's needed. And the fact that you were speaking about all of the machinery is only as good, obviously, as the different specialists that we have. And we have a holistic oncology setup whereby we have a medical oncologist, surgical oncologist, radiation oncologist, gynecological oncologist, and ENT surgeon to capture the majority of the different incidents of cancer that there will be. And I know you're getting ready to bring on Dr. Jagan. And Dr. Jagan is actually our surgical oncologist that specializes in oncoplasty breast surgery. He has close to a decade of experience in this area. He's also done 1,200 major oncological surgical procedures. He does complex surgical procedures such as cytoreductive surgery, oncoplasty breast surgery, laparoscopic surgeries for gastrointestinal, thoracic, urological, and pelvic malignancies. So he's very, very, very well versed. And as you always know, bringing in the A team, he's also worked on robotic oncological surgical subsites as well. And he was also trained at Asia's premier cancer institution, Tata Memorial Hospital. So the number one cancer institution in Asia. He was trained there as well. And whenever I talk, I always say, you only know you're as good at something if you can teach it. And he also was an assistant professor, which just also highlights the additional specialization and expertise that Dr. Jagan has as well.
Yes. Well, good morning, Dr. Jagan. I figured after that introduction, we might as well just bring you on. So thank you so much for joining us. I know this is your first time on the program, so a warm welcome to you, sir.
Good morning, Sandra, and good morning, Simori. It was a nice introduction. Thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to be on this.
Yes, absolutely wonderful. So glad to see you here. And of course, I want to share just sort of a personal story that I've actually met Dr. Jagan already. I was telling our listeners, I think it was about maybe 2 weeks ago now, that I had a little bit of a situation with some test results that came back that needed follow-up. And so I mentioned in that story that I was so fortunate that Health City had just brought on island recently this breast surgical expert. And so Dr. Jagan was able to review my mammogram. He was able to speak to the physician who did the ultrasound and, just reassure me that everything was fine. And he really explained it well. I'm not surprised that he has taught, as Shamari just shared, because in fact, when he was explaining things to me, I thought, oh, wow, he explains things extremely well. Because a lot of times physicians, they may be knowledgeable, but there's something lost in translation when they have to speak to the average person. And so he was explaining to me that, if this was cancerous, these are the things that we'd be looking for. We'd be looking for, the shape being a bit abnormal. We'd be looking for, calcification, like in clusters. And I mean, he just really, really broke it down where I could understand at some level what it was that he was saying. So, of course, thank you so much for, and I know that when I went there, it wasn't planned that I was going to see you, but, Dr. Benoit said, hey, while you're here, have the premier expert look at your results and just do a quick consult with him. So thank you so much, Dr. Jagan, for that. It really put my mind at ease as well.
Thank you. It's so nice of you to share this in this public forum. I'm happy that you got the point what I was getting across. I'm very happy if patients know what they are going through and what needs to be done for them. That's it.
Yes. Absolutely. So we're going to be speaking this morning, and we also have Dave O'Driscoll who's joining us as well. And this morning we're going to be talking about, the whole area of oncology. So some people said they can't quite hear you. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's anything you can do to kind of increase your mic levels at all. Um, but if you can make a little adjustment. But Dave is joining us. He's operations manager for the Cayman Islands Cancer Society, and he's going to be joining us in studio this morning as well. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm very good now. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So let's discuss this area. It's something that people, I feel like we should be more aware of. Surgical oncology. So when we hear that word oncology, some of us have an idea of what it is, others may not. Dr. Jagan, can you tell us, as a consultant surgical oncologist, what exactly is it that you'll be doing as part of the Health City team?
Surgical oncology is a field that deals with cancers in all parts of the body except for the brain or the heart. I do all cancer surgeries, right from breast, lung malignancies, even intestinal cancers, pelvic cancers, or soft tissue sarcomas, and all kinds of cancers except for the neurosurgery part of it, the brain surgery part of it. So, and it depends on the site of the cancer, the modality of the treatment changes. If it is a gastrointestinal or a thoracic cancer, we can do it laparoscopically, or video-assisted thoracoscopic surgeries can be done. For breast cancer, it's straightforward surgery, but with oncoplasty. Oncoplasty is nothing but some kind of plastic surgery which is done along with oncological resection of the tumor. So it depends on where the cancer is, and surgical oncologist is trained in all these subsets of all kinds of organs to deal with cancer. We deal with only cancers.
Only cancers. Okay. All right. So, and that includes everything from gynecological, breasts, what other radiation oncologists, there's an ENT surgeon. So pretty much most of these surgeons will fall under the surgical oncology umbrella.
Yes. Head and neck cancers and even gynec cancers as well. In the head and neck cancers, we do along with the team. We have our ENT surgeon trained in head and neck as well. So we do as a team. It's always a teamwork. Oncology is about a teamwork. Not only surgery does everything, along with my medical oncology and the radiation oncology colleagues. Only when you have all modalities of cancer treatment, you can achieve cure and you can give the best to the patient.
Okay.
Sandy,
Yeah.
Dr. Jagan, I don't know if you can possibly take out the headphones and just try the speaker
Right.
directly from the
Maybe.
computer, because I'm getting some comments as well that persons who are listening can't hear you that well.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Oh, perfect.
I think
Yeah,
that's
much
better.
better.
Yes.
Much better. Perfect.
All right. So I think maybe just repeat what you just said for us in case people missed the benefit of really explaining what surgical oncology encompasses. And you say that obviously it goes beyond that because you're working with a lot of other medical professionals as well.
Sorry for the voice interruption.
Yes.
Surgical oncology is a field that deals with cancers in all parts of the body except for the brain and the heart, inside the heart. So starting from the head to toe, all head and neck cancers, thyroid, tongue cancer, oral cavity cancers, and laryngeal cancers. Next, you come to the chest and thorax. Chest, we deal with breast cancers, and thorax, lung cancer, and mediastinal tumors. Then you come to the abdomen. It is the intestine, the colon, and the rectum. And the gynec cancers are obviously ovary and the uterus. And when you take the limbs, like you take sarcomas. Sarcomas are the cancers which arises from soft tissues like muscles or sometimes the bones as well. So I was trained in all these cancers. So I was practicing all this. So and in fact, in our team, we have one head and neck cancer expert. We work as a team when we do head and neck cancers. I usually say that oncology is a teamwork. Uh, Surgery is a part of it. Medical and oncology and the radiation oncology, along with all the three modalities, only you can achieve cure in cancer patients. So it's always a teamwork.
Yeah. So you're part of a team of professionals. So absolutely, thank you so much for that. So over 50 persons so far have received treatment on at the facility we were just talking about, which is the Gene Thompson Radiotherapy Center. That seems like quite a significant number because you've only just recently opened.
Yes, exactly. Initially, we never thought that this many numbers are waiting. So all these people would have waited long enough to reach somewhere abroad, and they have to wait to start their treatment, and they have to take off from their job as well. So as you initially mentioned that they can continue their work pattern, whatever it is, just go in the morning, take radiation. It's like a CT scan or something like that. They don't feel anything. And most of my patients are very happy having a radiation center here, and they're very excited to get the radiation here and continue their work, so that financially also they are not affected by not losing their job or things like that.
Right. And it was
And Sandy,
interesting.
sorry, Sandy,
Yeah.
just to mention that
Mhm.
obviously when we mentioned that we wanted to bring the radiotherapy center closer to town, just due to the fact that 70% of the population still live in Georgetown and 7 Mile Beach, West Bay. But also during the workday, 95% of persons will be in and around this area. We even opened the radiotherapy center earlier than we first anticipated, just for that. For persons when they need to have the 15 minutes worth of radiotherapy, they can come in, have their 15 minutes, and continue with their day, whether it's to go back to work or to carry a child to school or to deal with the elderly patient. We're just making it as flexible and as user friendly as possible for the actual community. And to Dr. Jagan's point, we obviously knew and had a a handle on the numbers that we thought we would see. But what really shocked us and once again drove home the point of why it was needed is that persons had been approved, right? And insurance was paying for it. And they just needed to go overseas to get it. But there are all the other social factors that were playing that they just didn't. Right. So at times, we don't put our health to the fore. And now by being here and being so close, a lot of those persons who may have put it off when you shouldn't will no longer need to put it off, and they can get it right here at home, go home every day, be with family. If they don't want to take time off of work, they won't have to take time off of work, and those sort of things that you don't really think about when you're putting a radiotherapy center here in the Cayman Islands.
One more thing, radiation is not. Radiation will take minimum 6 to 8 weeks time. So the treatment itself is a longer duration. It's not like surgery, or it's not like chemo, which you take every once in 3 weeks or things like that. So it is good that we have a radiation center here.
And I was quite surprised, not really knowing much about the process of radiation, how incredibly safe the facility is. I mean, your team went through and explained quite a bit about the measures that are taken to ensure safety, and also to just target the very specific cells that they're looking to treat. And a patient gets to walk away without any pain or severe discomfort, or, like you said, they can go back to work, Shamari, they can continue in their day, they can drop their kids off. I mean, this seems, quite an amazing treatment.
No, definitely. And as I mentioned, we knew that obviously it would be a benefit. We just didn't realize that persons were actually putting off treatment, to doctor's point, due to the fact that it takes from 6 to 8 weeks. So you're not going to be traveling back and forth, but you'll be going there for an extended period of time. And usually, if you're lucky, you may have one family member with you who can take that amount of time off. Many times, you may have nobody or just one person. Whereas when it's here in Cayman, you have that family support that's so important when it comes to healing as well.
Dave, joining us in the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I was just about to add to that as well. That
Yes.
a lot of times when we have people coming to us for financial aid
Mhm.
because they're looking to have treatment done, and they would have to go overseas, their insurance can only cover so much. Many
Mm.
insurances wouldn't cover the flights, the accommodation, the travel to and from the hotel, and it definitely wouldn't cover having a companion or a partner travel with them, and basically keep them company for the 6 to 8 weeks. And that that trip itself, like let alone the actual treatment, can be very hard and laboring on somebody. And you have people coming back from that after 6 to 8 weeks. Obviously, lucky enough, we were able to cover them for all the costs. But they come back from that in a much worse condition than if they were able to do it here while being able to go home every night and be with their loved ones. So it can make a massive difference to just a patient's psyche and their well-being and their kind of their attitude towards the treatment.
Sandy, I think you're on mute.
Yes, my apologies. Thank you. No, I was just saying that I can definitely imagine being away from home, and even just your routine, adds a certain level of stress to your life on top of having to get cancer treatment. So it's so interesting, Dave, that you talk about, knowing firsthand the people that are definitely benefiting from having this treatment available right here in Ireland.
Yes, yeah, very much
Mm.
so. We try to keep in contact with our patients when they do go off island, and they're obviously trying to be as upbeat as possible, but some of them they don't have the strength mentally to go through such a big change, such a big trip. They wouldn't even do it if they were in the best of health. A lot of these people, and suddenly they're just thrown into an adventure that they're not really willing to take up. So to have something like this, and obviously the next step is we need to work with the insurance companies to make sure that they see the huge benefits in this in terms of keeping the patient safe and secure and comfortable as well while they're going through this awful life experience.
And don't forget, folks, you can join the show 936-2626. Miss Debbie says congratulations to Health City. We also have Leanna said that she thought when I said rundown that I was talking about food this morning. Not quite. I know we talk about food a lot on this program, but not today. We also have Chris Malloy who's joining us, and Chris says hello from Boston, Massachusetts. The Malloy family had a great experience with Health City, saved my wife's life, outstanding institution, and congrats on the Dolphin win. He says that he had a great hospital, great personnel across all aspects of the institution. Who would think that such a terrible health scare would leave us with such fond memories, such fond memories of the island and the hospital. Congrats again. And he says, enjoy most likely one of the few you'll have this season. Oh, go Patriots. So sounds like you got some competition there, Shamari.
Yeah, that's a rival there, a Patriots fan.
Yes.
But no, Chris Malloy, many years ago, we need to probably get him on the program. His
absolutely.
wife had a serious health scare. They rushed her up off of a cruise ship. They rushed her up to Health City. We were able to do what we do and save her life. And he's been a close friend of the Cayman Islands and Health City ever since, him, his wife, and all of his children. Really touching story. So one of these days we'll reach out to him and have him come on and with his wife to tell the story that he loves to share. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So again, folks, we're having a discussion around surgical oncology today. If you have any questions, please do feel free to give us a call. So surgical oncology, the goal is to remove the cancer cells from the affected area. So Dr. Jagan, sometimes surgery might be the way to go. Is it normally the case, though, that you're going to do surgery in combination with other types of treatment?
Surgery is the main part of the treatment, because you have to remove the cancer out. The other treatments will take care of what cannot be removed or what cannot be surgically resected. Like chemotherapy acts on all the cells which is not seen through eyes, which is in the bloodstream. Same way, the radiation also acts in the cells which are not seen or which cannot be seen and removed by surgery. The ideal way for any tumor, when it is surgically resected, that is the first part of the treatment, and if that is done as the best way, that ensures cure in most of the patients.
Hmm. And that's why you're talking about, it's a team effort and you have all these different specialists working together, because you bring all your collective knowledge and expertise to look at a patient's case and look at their specific type of cancer, where it's located, and what treatment modality would actually work best for that individual.
Yes, absolutely. So everything plays a part in getting cure for the patient. Every step in cancer treatment is already measured, and it is studied in multiple times, and then it is practiced. So surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation are integral part of most of the cancers. In some of the early cancers, we might be able to avoid chemo or radiation. That is in a very early stage or in a pre-malignant stage. Pre-malignant stage is the stage before the cancer arises. In those stages, surgery would be enough. But all rest of the cancer treatment will encompass both chemotherapy and radiation as well. And people are sometimes afraid about taking chemotherapy and radiation. I'll tell you, both the things have been very much advanced now compared to what it was 20 years ago. The side effects are very less, and radiation, I hardly find any side effects of radiation in our patients. Even chemotherapy is gone far away. So people do not worry or fear of getting those treatments. My aim is to, if the patient completes all the treatment, then that is the best thing that can happen for the patient, so that we can aim for the cure, or we can aim for control of the disease for a longer duration of time.
Right. I was quite surprised, Dave, when I did the tour of the facility last week, to hear the expert tell me that there is a pretty high instance of cancers, particularly breast and prostate, on this island. Do we have any idea what could be driving that, and what's going on, really?
It's very hard to tell.
Mhm.
Our numbers have increased significantly in the number of people that we actually provide financial care to. So that means there are more and more people coming to us who need financial assistance to pay for their treatments, their testing, their diagnoses. There's a lot of factors. You could put it down to a lot of people struggling to, as they get older, to increase their insurance premium as we usually would. This premium would obviously cover more kind of outpatient treatments, which cancer diagnosis starts with, with PET scans and MRIs and CT scans. Obviously, COVID in 2020, a lot of people had to dip into their savings a lot, and it really did kind of set them back a couple of years in terms of their family planning and their insurance coverage. So that's one thing we were thinking of. It's very hard. I hope to God it's not the big expansion of the dump that you can see right outside of the Health City, which isn't the best looking thing in the world. But no, we don't really know. Again, also our population is increasing exponentially over the last couple of years as well. We went from an apparent, was it 55,000 after COVID, and now we're back to over 70, with no signs of it stopping.
Closer to 82 is what I hear, but
is that it now? That's
So, but your point is definitely taken.
Yeah.
That was
might be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to Dave. Obviously, based on cost of living and disposable income reducing, maybe obviously population growth and everything else, but maybe a few years ago you would have had enough in your savings that you could have covered some of these tests, whereas now everybody is going paycheck to paycheck. And therefore, if you have an incidence of cancer, you may need more help today than you would have needed previously. And this is probably also points to why certain medical professionals and such are talking about having a cancer registry, just because, at times you may think that the incidence is higher, but without proper registry to be able to identify how many cancers in what areas and the such, it's a little bit more difficult to do that analysis. and I know in Cayman as well. Um, just due to the small nature of the Cayman Islands, when you're in a larger city, many people may have cancer, you may not know them. But in Cayman, you always know somebody who knows somebody who says to you, "Oh, so and so has cancer," in a small society. So at times, you wonder whether or not is it truly that it's the incidence is higher, or is it just that we kind of know everybody, right? Third degree of separation.
No, you're hearing the story 3 times.
And you're hearing the story 3 times as well.
But the medical professionals are saying that the numbers are definitely higher, based on their experience, probably in other jurisdictions and stuff. But this is where, Dave, perhaps you can give us some idea of what the Cayman Islands Cancer Society do in terms of collecting data or information, like who in the medical profession is collating this information so that we can, have more accurate numbers to work off of.
Well, that's it. As you know, or if you don't know, the cancer registry itself is based at HSA. You are not obliged to register yourself with the cancer registry once you discover that you have cancer. It is strongly recommended. Every country in the first world, it is mandatory that you sign up to the cancer registry once it is proven that you have cancer. This has so many benefits in the long term for the population and for the fight against cancer globally even. They need to have the information, they need to have the stats, they need to have the data, so that we can find out what cancers are occurring more often, especially in different regions of the world, like here now in the Caribbean. So there's no, obviously all this information is anonymous. So there's no reason why if you do discover that you unfortunately have cancer, one of the first things you should do after you've obviously sorted out all your testing and your scheduled treatment is give the cancer registry a call and get your details logged into their system so that it can benefit the rest of the population, and hopefully we can move forward with make better inroads with better information.
I think that it's from some of the things that I've heard, it's one of those things where there's a lot of misinformation about the registry and kind of perhaps how the information would be utilized. And like you said, you can completely remain anonymous. And I also think that it's a bit of a mindset of people on this island that unfortunately never want to share information. I mean, I know the ESO struggles on a regular basis when they have to do, whether it's the every 4 years they do the big survey. What's it called again? But the big census survey. And then in between they do smaller ones for like business. They do a workforce labor survey, and they really struggle to get people to participate because I don't know, there seems to be this mentality that I don't want to tell anybody, what's going on in my life.
Yeah, I think the first mistake they made was, and I guess, looking back, you think, all right, well, it's fair. It's a democracy. Let's give people the choice if they want to submit their details or not. I think that was one might argue that was their first mistake. In every major country in the world, they didn't start with that. They just, passed a law. Look, when you have cancer, you need to write it down. We don't care about your name. We don't care about your name at all. We just need to know the cancer. We need to know the details about the cancer and nothing else. Yes. We don't want to know who you are, who you're married to, who your brother is. But unfortunately, when you leave it open to debate, then you get questions that start arising that have no right being in the conversation in the first part, and then it spirals out of control. And unfortunately, then you get a bit of an opposition.
Right. Yeah. And I think, again, it's like a mindset or a way of thinking about things that maybe is a little bit unique and different here in the Cayman Islands. But let's talk now about breast cancer and surgical oncology, Dr. Jagan, specifically relating to breast cancer. So what are some of the treatment options available for breast cancer patients in 2023?
First, I'll start with surgery for breast cancer. There are two types of surgery which can be done for breast cancer. One is removing the whole breast. The other one is removing only the tumor along with some normal tissue margins. So now people tend to ask me whether I need to remove the whole breast, but that is not the answer for all patients. Because of the advancement in chemotherapy and radiation, we can avoid removing the whole breast for all patients. Almost every patient, you can downsize the tumor even if it is big, and do a breast conservation. Breast conservation means we just remove the tumor along with margins, and we can do a oncoplasty along with it. Oncoplasty is maintaining the shape of the breast with our own tissue. The tissue might be from the tummy, or from the back, or within the breast itself. So it depends on how big the tumor is and how much the resection volume is. So all said and done, removing whole breast is not the answer for everybody. It will be needed only in few occasions when there is some higher family risk or other tumor factors which will decide it. But blanket treatment of removing whole breast for everybody is not recommended. You can remove only the tumor, and always the chemotherapy and radiation is going to be given as a part of the treatment, and you will receive hormone therapy if you have hormone positive cancer. So all that will take care of the microscopic disease which is not seen. Even after removing the whole breast, all these treatment will be given. So you are not going to avoid any of the treatment by removing the whole breast. Some people have a strong myth that when we remove the whole breast, we are away from cancer as well. You don't have a chance of recurrence or things like that. It doesn't go that way. Only one with a strong family history or genetic risk, then there is a risk of the breast cancer coming again the same breast, and that's why we recommend to do a mastectomy. Mastectomy is removal of the whole breast. In all other patients, we can get away by conserving the breast and giving this adjuvant treatment like chemotherapy and hormone therapy and radiation. And people can it affects them mentally as well. If you remove the whole breast, you have to reconstruct it with a bigger tissue and a bigger surgery as well. And physical appearance do affect people in the longer run. So I don't recommend removing whole breast for all patients. Only when the tumor is at a higher risk or when the genetic factor is there, then only I will recommend to do a mastectomy for a patient. It all depends on the tumors, and most of the tumors, 80 to 90%, we can get away with only removing the breast lump and reconstruct it with our own tissue. Our own tissue is the best material to get reconstruction with, because once it is healed, you don't need to worry about it.
So we're talking about a lumpectomy versus a complete breast removal.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thinking is obviously it's specific to the patient, but oftentimes the lumpectomy will be just the most effective way to deal with it, along with other treatment options.
Yeah. And there is a myth that if you do a mastectomy, then you can avoid chemo or radiation. That is not the fact. You are not going to avoid anything by doing a mastectomy. Mastectomy is not to avoid these treatments.
Right.
These treatments are part of cancer treatment. As I told you, whatever is not seen through the eyes, that microscopic disease is taken care of by chemotherapy, radiation, hormone therapy. All these adjuvant treatments are given so that the cancer doesn't come back. The cancer recurrence need not happen only within the breast. It can happen in the lymph node. It can happen anywhere in the body. So only removing the whole breast is not the answer for everybody. That's what I'll tell you. Each patient the treatment has to be tailored according to the tumor and according to the age and other risk factors as well.
Okay. All right. We've got Brenda who's joining us, listening from Antigua this morning. Good morning to Brenda. So good to see you. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. I've noticed this morning that some of you on Facebook have like a little link by your icon. I'm not quite sure what that link means, but is it like a verified account? I don't know if Facebook's doing something new, but I noticed that Brenda had one, and so did Chris. So we'll have to figure out what that is. All right. Very good. Talk a little bit then about, I think a woman's breast is so connected to who she is as her identity for a lot of women. As a community, as a society, we seem to prioritize breast for more reasons than one. So not just the function of being able to breastfeed, but they have a function of whether or not you found to be attractive. There are women who will go out of their way to enhance the size of their breasts and so on. So I think that when a woman has breast cancer or needs any kind of breast surgery, she's left feeling different about who she is as a woman. And I suppose this can be an extremely difficult situation. Do most women opt to have some form of reconstructive surgery after going through something like a mastectomy or lumpectomy?
Yeah, there are various options after lumpectomy and mastectomy. After lumpectomy, it depends on how big the resection volume is or how big the tumor was. Depending on that, we can refill the space with tissue from the lateral side of the chest, or from the abdomen, or from the back. If you are doing a mastectomy, you might need to put a tummy pad towards the breast, creating a new breast. That is called whole breast reconstruction. And I could see some implant images in the picture, but implants, I don't advise implants for my patients as such. I keep implants as my last option because implants do have some problems. There are implant failures, implant contractures, and the wound breakdown because of the implant. All said and done, implant is a foreign material to our body. Putting our own tissue is the best ideal way of reconstruction. Implants can be a stopgap to do a whole breast reconstruction, but it cannot be a permanent solution. If I give you the statistics, if there are 100,000 implants which is put in United States, 40,000 of them undergo resurgery for the implants. So it is like you're going to be put under knife once more. So implants is, see, breast is a dynamic organ. So it is a mobile organ. So if you put an implant, one side of the breast will be something different compared to the other side. If you put an implant for one side after mastectomy or things like that. So all said and done, there are some lot of negatives along with the implant, and there are some tumors which have come back because of implants, lymphomas, which is called as large cell lymphomas, which have been reported with implants, which is not shown by the implant companies or things like that. So implant can be a stopgap for a permanent solution, but I don't think implant is a permanent solution. Unless otherwise we don't have any other option, like patient has undergone multiple surgeries and you don't have any other tissue left or things like that, then I can accept that implant can be put because they don't have any other options left. But I don't prefer it as a first option. When you have other best options available, better use the best ones and keep implant as a standby or an option when it's not available, when other things are not available.
Okay, very, very interesting. Thank you for that. And I know of a few people who just decide to do nothing. They do the surgery and they might use like a just an implant, like the ones that you just put in your bra cup to kind of make sure that your clothes look okay. And they say, hey, if a man finds me less attractive because of this, then so be it. And they just live with that. So I think that that's also, I suppose, an option as well. All right. So, as always, we want to talk about how we can reduce our potential risk associated with different types of cancers. So, let's go through this list. I think most of us will kind of know some of this already, but it's great to just kind of reiterate the things that we need to do. Dave, I'm sure you guys at the Cayman Islands Cancer Society must do educational programs where you're encouraging people to live healthier, more active lifestyles, because all of those things will undoubtedly, benefit them.
Yes, absolutely. It is one of the few ways that we can actually we can help in that way, because none of us are doctors or surgeons down at Cayman Islands Cancer Society, unfortunately. But we have our biannual public health fair happening next week on Saturday, September 23rd. And this will really be an opportunity to learn more about keeping your body healthy, what fuels your body, and what gives your body better strength to become more immune and to fight off all diseases, not just cancer. So we will have all different medical organizations, companies, clinics. We'll have fitness studios. We have health food manufacturers, all down there giving off free samples, so free food samples. We will have a lot of the other nonprofit organizations as well, giving us a hand by providing free screenings. You're talking blood pressure, BMIs, diabetes, glucose, screenings for skin cancer, hearing, sight. All this is free, and it's at the Marriott from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Absolutely free to the public. So come on in. We also will have presentations going on all day long from speakers coming from our sponsors. There are even a couple of hospitals overseas who have been so nice to come down and help us out with this. and we will have all little talks about every kind of subject you can imagine that has to do with keeping your body healthy, keeping your body strong, fighting off diseases like cancer and other very, very threatening diseases. It's a great opportunity to learn a lot. I know as a man now in my 40s with a young family, suddenly my health is paramount, not because of me, but because of my children. And I want to be strong for them, and I want to have the knowledge myself that I can impart to them so they can then also lead a healthy life and make the right decisions. So I hope that I see anybody my age and all my friends down there, because you'll definitely learn a thing or two.
Wonderful. All right. So make sure you mark your calendar for that event. And will you send that to us as well, so that we can add it to our CMR community calendar, which is available on our website?
I would love to. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go through some of the things that you can do. Take ownership of your own health, folks. Number one, be aware of your own individual health risk as well as your family risk. So again, know your medical history, know if there's any instances of disease, particularly cancers that run in your family. Having that information can be extremely beneficial. So Dr. Jagan, like in my case, for example, I've got two females in my family now, at least that I know about, that have had breast cancer. How much does that increase your chances? So one is my mother, but she was like in her 80s. So, age, obviously, you have to take that into consideration. And one was a much younger sister who I think might have been early 40s when hers was discovered. So for myself, how much does that increase or impact my chances?
If a family member is diagnosed with cancer in less than 40 years, then your chance increases by it multiplies by twice compared to the others. So, and if you have more than two family members affected less than 40 years, then your chance multiplies by 5 times.
Wow.
More than two members, less than 40 years. Okay. So in your case,
the younger the person, the more significant it is. And if it's two people, then you're looking at a higher risk if they're younger.
Yeah. Always these familial cancers or the genetic cancers occurs in a younger age group rather than an older age group. Older age group happens as such as, but the younger age cancers are mostly associated with some family history or some genetic defects.
Very interesting. Reduce alcohol consumption. So what is it about alcohol that increases your incidence of cancer?
The strongest association of alcohol is with liver cancers. Once you consume alcohol, they'll end up in some amount of liver failure. It's amount of alcohol and the duration of alcohol they have taken it. Once the patient ends up in liver failure, they call a term called cirrhosis. The cirrhosis will turn into a cancer. That is what liver cancer is strongly associated with alcohol. If you take alcohol for longer duration, then you're prone to have a hepatocellular carcinoma, that is called a liver cancer. And alcohol is associated with other cancer as well, but the strongest association is with the liver cancer.
And does it matter what type of alcohol? Because some people think, if I drink fancy wine versus hard liquor, somehow that's going to make a difference. Does it really matter?
It is a percentage of alcohol that we consume that matters. It can be wine or it can be other forms of alcohol, but it is the percentage of alcohol that a person daily consumption that matters a lot.
Yes. So it's how much you're actually consuming it, the frequency and how much you're consuming.
It is how much and how frequently you're consuming. That matters a lot.
Right. Eating healthy and being physically active. So this is another great one. So we see in the display here a nice picture of balanced meals. You've got your fruits and legumes, vegetables, and so on. So eating a healthy diet, being very, very conservative in how much meat you consume would also be an important part of a healthy diet.
Yes, diet is the most important factor. For all your intestinal cancers, diet is the most important thing. Not only intestinal, even breast cancers. If your BMI is less, the risk of developing a cancer is less. That is what the studies have proven it. So keeping an ideal body mass index, you need an adequate diet or an ideal balanced meal along with regular physical activity. These two go hand in hand so that you keep your BMI in a perfect shape you can avoid developing a cancer. Leave about other medical ailments also, you will be avoiding it, like diabetes, hypertension, things like that. It's about a healthy lifestyle with a balanced meal and a regular physical activity, daily physical activity.
Right. Okay. All right. And we also have I'm just trying to bring up, hold on a second here. I was trying to do the fancy version of this morning. So we've got doing your regular checkups. Of course, again, this is important because a lot of times cancers are discovered by physicians, right? So knowing what a mammogram looks like last year versus what it looks like this year, these things are important, whether you're going in for your colonoscopy. You can find polyps early enough to do something about them. So early detection really comes down to regular screening.
Yes, screening is the most important part of cancer treatment. Once we develop a strong screening setup, we would avoid, or we can stop seeing these cancers being detected. We can detect in a stage where before cancer develops, or we can prevent it. So that is the ideal way to go about. As you said, mammograms to be done early basis, and colonoscopies are more than 45 years. For cervical cancers, you can do pap smears every 3 years. And for prostate cancers, you can do a blood test called prostate specific antigen, so that you can screen all. If you screen it and pick it up in an early stage or a stage before it comes, that is called pre-malignant stage, then you can achieve cure, and they can they can have the normal lifespan.
And it's specific to breast cancer, the ability to be able to breastfeed and limit postmenopausal hormone therapy, also seen as important steps to reduce your cancer risk.
Yeah, for breast cancer, breastfeeding is the most important risk factor. If they don't breastfeed, the chances of getting a breast cancer is high. Breastfeeding is a preventive measure, so whoever has breastfed a kid for more than 6 months, their chances of cancer significantly comes down. That is what all the previous literature quotes it, and it is seen as well. Then hormonal therapy for longer duration is not good enough unless otherwise advised by a physician for some indication. Taking over-the-counter pills for as a contraceptive hormonal pill for longer duration is not ideally advised.
All right, very good. 936-2626. If you have any questions for our experts or Dave from the Cayman Islands Cancer Society today, please give us a call. So, and just like that, we've got Denny joining the program. Good morning, Denny.
Morning.
Hello.
What effect does the long-term use of the pill have on the hormone balance of a woman?
Okay, so birth control, Dr. Jagan.
Yeah. See, breast cancer is most of the breast cancers are hormone dependent. It grows because of the estrogen and progesterone. So, if you take hormonal pills for longer duration without a physician advice on your own for some contraceptive or things like that, you are changing the hormonal balance in the body. So once hormonal balance is lost, then your normal cells will start losing its signals to grow normally. So the change in the growth of the cells happens. That's where at a longer duration of time it changes into a cancer. So basically you are inciting a normal cell to become a cancer just because you're doing something that is not required for the body. So body has a normal hormonal balance. So you're just disrupting the balance. So that causes the cells to grow haphazardly. If a normal cell grows haphazardly, that becomes a cancer. So that's why hormonal pills for a longer duration, unless otherwise it is indicated for a specific condition or a reason, is not recommended. It is always an advice you have to follow. And same way we give hormonal treatment for breast cancer. For the breast cancer should not come back. That is something different from the hormonal pills which you take for contraception or a birth control.
Okay. All right, Denny. Any further questions?
Well, I wasn't really able to hear him that well. But I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. 936-2626. We're going to be wrapping up here in a second. Shamari, of course, people, Siobhan says she's listening intently. I know that a lot of people are listening to the program this morning, seeing how they can get more information. One of the things that you have running the promotional specials right now is the senior health check. So, of course, getting in there and getting all those things checked, all the examinations that are available. Tell us a little bit about the senior health check.
Definitely. So just to remind people that they need to book before September 17th, but you can actually see the physician and booking your time prior to September 30th. Patients must be 65 years to qualify, and it includes routine blood tests for bone health, memory, vascular disease, ECG for the heart, urine analysis, stool test for occult blood, and the consultation with our mature elder physician that will be able to tell you exactly what the results mean and if you need anything else. He would have been on the program with us last week, and it's had quite a good take up, and a lot of people are calling me about their parents and otherwise. But just want to mention info@healthcity.ky, or you can go ahead and call 640-4040 and tell them that you want to take advantage. $250 US, right? And you get all of that included, to be able to make sure that we're checking everything for your parents, your grandparents, or whomever you think would definitely benefit from the seniors health check.
Fantastic. I've actually just thought of somebody that I need to get registered, but I'll message you off here about that one.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, fantastic. So again, folks, this is quite a deal. $250 US. You get this opportunity to have a fairly comprehensive health check. You've got to be 65 or over to qualify for it. You do have to book it from now. So I think that's important to note.
Correct.
Before the 17th of September. Correct. So that is I think that's like Sunday. So you've got between now and Sunday to get the bookings. The only thing you need to do to qualify is be at least 65 years of age.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, fantastic. And he went through all of the stuff that's included in it. It is quite a bit. So again, I think that's an amazing deal. Thank you guys so much, Health City, for offering that. So any final thoughts, Dr. Jagan, from you as you start to get to know a little bit more about the community and you're starting to see patients here in the Cayman Islands?
We as a comprehensive cancer center can deal any kinds of cancer and any kind of recurrences or cancer that comes back. So anybody can reach out to us, and we have an excellent team of our medical oncology and radiation oncology along with me working together, and we would be able to give the best to the community. We're happy to welcome anyone who is in need of any kind of advice or treatment with respect.
All right, Dave, tell us how people can reach out to the Cancer Society. Do you have, a Facebook page, social media?
We have it all. Yes, we are thriving in the 21st century. We have Instagram, Facebook, our website, very easy, cics.ky. If you want to email us, it's info@cics.ky. Give us a call. We're always there to chat. If you need some guidance, some help, or want to know where you stand in terms of your finances and your insurance as well. We know a lot about insurance that some people don't, and all the pitfalls that are therein. Give us a call on 949-7816.
All right, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming onto the program again and sharing this amazing information with us. Shamari, as always, we appreciate you being here. Any final words for us today?
No, just I thank you for our guests coming on, and just to say that the Cancer Society has done so much good for so many people over so many years that we're forever indebted to you as a country as well, and the society, and we look forward to in partnership with them. That now I'm sure they're very excited that we have the radiotherapy center here on island, but outside of that, all of the machinery is only as good as the specialists, and we have specialists across the full spectrum: medical, oncology, surgical, radiotherapy, from a gynae perspective, as well as ENT. So we're covering the majority of it, which will not only mean that you have greater access, but it's going to also be more affordable, cost less than going overseas and the such. And the fact that we're here and working with the Cancer Society, if there's ever an issue with insurance between our organizations, we'll be able to work with you to make sure that you access the treatment that is needed. With that, Sandy, we'll see you next week.
All right,
and
sounds fantastic.
look forward to that.
All right, thanks very much, guys. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these brief messages.
Friends, Caymanians, Whopper fans, I do declare that this king is angry. The Angry Whopper is back after 4 years. Flame grilled quarter pounder topped with melted pepper jack cheese, hot angry sauce, crispy angry onions, iceberg lettuce, jalapenos, and tomato. But that is not all. You can now get angry everything. Angry chicken, angry fish, even angry breakfast. Ask for angry at Burger King and we'll add pepper jack cheese, angry sauce, angry onions, and jalapenos to any sandwich. Angry everything is here for a limited time only, and only at Burger King.
I'm Kenneth Bryan, Minister for Tourism and Ports, and I need your help to keep our beautiful islands clean. Littering is unsightly and negatively impacts our tourism industry, which is crucial to our economy. Keeping our islands clean is everyone's responsibility, so let's all work together to keep the Cayman Islands beautiful for generations to come.
Be a part of the solution, not the pollution. Littering is a crime punishable by a $500 fine or 6 months in prison. Brought to you by the Beautification Task Force and Ministry of Tourism and Ports.
Ocean Ridge Heights offers an amazing opportunity to own a piece of land in idyllic Cayman Brac, right on the bluff, starting from $80,000. Located in a quiet residential area with high elevation, these lots are ideal for a future home or investment property and are sure to go fast. Cayman Brac offers a laid-back lifestyle, amazing pristine diving, limestone caves, diverse flora, along with amazing wildlife. Inquire about the owner financing options so that you can secure your piece of paradise today. With only a few lots remaining, these are sure to go before you know it. Contact Crichton Properties today on 345-949-5250 or info@crichtonproperties.com.
Recover Personal Injury Attorneys, helping injured people get what they deserve. Did you know that insurance companies have lawyers that represent their interests? Before signing and accepting any settlement, know your rights. Call us today for a free consultation at 924-9999. That's 924-9999. Recover. Your personal injury attorneys are on standby to assist.
Pasko sa panahon ng tag-init? Oo, eto na naman ang panahon ng Balikbayan Box. Kumuha ng inyong mga kahon sa halagang $75 at punuin ito ng lahat ng iyong mga kalakal na papunta sa Pilipinas. Napakadali lang, kumuha ng inyong kahon, punuin ang inyong kahon at ibalik sa MBI. Ang Miracle Brokers ang bahala sa iba. Ang mga kahon ay darating sa tamang panahon para sa Pasko. Huwag mag-atubiling magmadali. Ang huling araw ay sa September 30. Tumawag sa 949-989 or 814-244 para sa karagdagang impormasyon.
In the mornings, no one wants to miss listening to The Cold Hard Truth or reading CMR. Cayman's #1 news platform has made your morning commute fun again. Pass this time with The Cold Hard Truth on weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Talk radio that's engaging, entertaining, and enlightening. But be careful. Some mornings it's so hot, you might run into a bit of trouble.
All right, folks, welcome back. We might run into a bit of trouble. Well, honey, child, when you tell them the truth, sometimes you run into a bit of trouble, but you keep going. You keep steamrolling through it because what else are you going to do, right? What's the saying? The truth shall set you free. What a hot mess. I tell you what. Okay, let's get into another conversation. First of all, we're going to talk to a gentleman who is going to be heading to Morocco on Thursday. He did call the program briefly yesterday, and we were about to go into our pre-recorded segment with the premier. And so we want to give him some time this morning to kind of tell us a bit about, what he's hearing is happening on the ground there. He will actually be on the ground on Thursday. And so we're going to bring him into the studio. Just give me one quick second here. This is Martin So let's see if we can bring Martin on the line. Mhm.
Hi, this is Martin.
Hi, Martin. Good morning. It's Sandra calling from the Cayman Islands. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. So we've got you live on radio this morning. Thank you so much for being willing to just briefly speak with us so that we can, get an idea of what some of the assistance efforts are for the poor people of Morocco who've just been hit by, this, oh my gosh, it's shocking, earthquake. I believe it was a 6.8 magnitude earthquake that has caused really catastrophic damage in that country. Tell us a little bit about your connection to Morocco.
Well, we've been in satellite communications since I started over 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And we've been working with the Moroccan government for like 35 years,
Mhm.
mostly with the police force, Royal Police Force. We're the main supplier for their satellite communications.
Mhm.
And we have a very good working relationship with them. So basically, they are responsible for the search and rescue. They're the primary organization dealing with this.
Mhm.
And we've been non-stop. But I have people working for me in Morocco. I have a company there. And we've been non-stop working around the clock to assist them for the last 3 days, 3 or 4 days, to make sure that all their equipment is working and in the right place and the rest of it. So I've been asked to go over there on Thursday
Mhm.
because we're also working with the palace, and we have to go over there and assist them because they're majorly involved with the rescue operation as well. In fact, every government department is involved with the rescue operation right now. So
Mhm.
we're getting a lot of requests for satellite phones because the infrastructure is completely destroyed.
Wow.
So yeah, and then you can't even go there right now. The roads are in really bad condition.
Mm.
And only military people and relief organizations are allowed to go there at the moment. So, and I don't know how long this is going to take to resolve because these are very remote villages. These people are living right on the top of the, what they call the Mayan Atlas, which is the Medium Atlas Mountains.
Mhm.
And they're living in small villages with 200 or 300 people. But they're very difficult to get to, and now with this road situation, some of them can only be got to by helicopter. So, yeah, the situation is quite critical, and it is definitely Morocco needs a lot of help right now to resolve this, but it needs to be logistics is the biggest problem for them right now.
Mhm. Wow.
So,
Mhm.
I've seen images of the villages that they're completely destroyed. They just collapsed, and people have a very small chance of survival in these conditions. And apparently the smell is really bad. So they're trying to get the body, bury the bodies and what have you. It's very difficult. They can't get heavy machinery up there. They're lifting up the stones by hand, and it's complicated.
Mhm. Yeah, we actually had two Moroccan citizens on the program yesterday. Ironically, we have a team member for our news platform who lives in Morocco. And, I think his home was badly damaged. He also works at a little convenience shop there, and he was showing us some of the damage. But he said that in the country, the mountainsides and stuff, it's such devastation that there've been entire mountains that have been wiped off the map, really. And some of the footage that we've seen is just shocking. So incredibly shocking. So what will you, I think that also the death toll numbers is edging closer to around 3,000. I think he sent me some figures last night where it had gone up to 2,497 dead and another 2,476 injured. So what are some of the most urgent needs in the country? And there's some people here in the Cayman Islands who are inquiring about how can they assist?
Well, I mean, they have enough, I would say, people on the ground. And not people can't really physically do much more than is being done. They do need possibly food supplies. They definitely, I mean, from our perspective, they are, a lot of people are asking for satellite phones, and we're trying to do what we can to get them there as quickly as possible. We already have quite a lot there, but they don't have enough. So that's what we're trying to do. I can ask the question to the powers that be, but they're so busy that it's difficult really to talk to anybody about anything else than what we do. To my knowledge, they have food supplies, because Morocco is very rich in food supplies. It has a lot of agriculture and fishing and all the rest of it. I think the biggest problem they have really is logistics. Like, like what we do is like essential, and it's a little bit, don't need this stuff because they have very good GSM. But right now everything's broken, all the repeaters are broken. So from our perspective, we need to send them as many satellite phones as we can, because that's what they really need. And so we've been speaking to the Ministry of Interior, the Armed Forces. All these people are looking for satellite phones like crazy. So this is, but I don't know about the rest of it. I think from the food and all the rest of it, I think they're okay. The help is flooding in from all over the place, so it's difficult really to say. I will know more when I go there on Thursday.
Yes, I was actually quite surprised that, the people that we were communicating with yesterday, they actually seem to have had pretty good cell service still. They were able to join us on the show through a video call. So I thought, wow, that's still pretty impressive. But I think that they're in a more populated area, like in the city, as opposed to being in the countryside.
Yeah, so to give you some idea, Marrakesh, I looked at the map, there were 2.8 million people in the region of Marrakesh that could have been affected. Marrakesh was damaged, unfortunately, but it's an hour and a half to 2 hours drive under normal conditions to get to the first village. And right now, if you can drive there, it's 9 hours drive. Wow. So we have a member of the family whose parents were there during the earthquake, and he actually walked 60 miles up the mountain because the road, he couldn't go up by road. So he was up there, and his parents were okay, but his mother who's very elderly is living in a house that's virtually collapsed, and she doesn't want to leave the house. She prefers the house collapse on her than leave her house. So you can imagine it's very stressful. I think the cell service is working somewhat, because I received some videos from their village, but they're one of the first villages. So from a government point of view, cell services are apparently not sufficient. So we're supplying them with satellite internet, because there's no internet. It's just if possible, you can use the phone, but you can't really do anything like sending reports or all the logistics and what have you. So we're supplying them with internet over satellite. So, but basically, this is a much more important problem than on the face of it, because that area has got a lot of dams, and they use them for irrigation. And this type of earthquake can seriously affect the integrity of the dams, and could cause other problems later on. With flooding, or they might have to repair the dams, which could really upset the whole economy. So this is a much more important situation than the immediate effect. The immediate effect, obviously, people dying is terrible, but the actual infrastructure of the country may have been severely damaged by this. So, I mean, the earthquake was felt all the way up to Lisbon.
Wow, it's quite shocking.
Yeah.
All right. Some people are left without homes at this time as well, those that have survived. My guy was saying it looks like there's a urgent need for tents. Will you be taking anything with you to assist in that way, or are you just focused on the actual satellite radio part of things?
Yeah, they are extremely well organized for this.
Yes.
They're actually part of the United Nations, so they help other countries when they have their own portable hospitals. I don't know what they call them, but they have their own mobile hospitals and the rest of it. So they're very well organized for this type of event.
Mhm.
But my focus is just helping the government with the satellite communications. That's what I'm good at, and that's what I'm trying to, with my team in Morocco and myself, which are trying to help them as much as we can.
Mhm.
I'm focused on that. But I mean, I've heard, and I've got images that the villages are 90% destroyed. So people are sleeping outside, and it's getting quite cold now, and it's been coming towards the winter again. So, but I believe their helicopters, army helicopters, are dropping supplies and blankets and what have you to the different villages. While they're waiting to get there with their lorries and what have you, they've been sending out helicopters up there. So I think from that perspective they're okay. It's just the problem is repairing the infrastructure so they can actually get there and help them. It's going to take a while.
Right.
But I think there's probably many more that have perished in this than 2,500, because the total exposure was like 400,000 people in the epicenter.
Wow.
So I think they'll probably find, and because they can't get there, they can't start digging up the rubble. They don't have the equipment to dig up the rubble. So that's the problem. So we don't know at this stage exactly how bad things are, but they're.
So you don't think that there'll be a dire need for medical supplies or anything like that to be brought into the country necessarily, that they'll be able to source those there?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm working with the government, so I can ask the question, but I don't think so. I think that everybody's trying to help them. So I think now it's a problem of just keeping things organized and efficient. So that's what the government's pretty good at. I will ask the question, because I've got to speak to them later on today, to see if Cayman can do something to help. If you guys want to help with satellite equipment, let us know, and we'll make sure that it gets to them, because that's that we know that they need right now. So, but apart from that, I think they have everything, but I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll ask the question.
Right. Well, Martin, did you have some team members that were impacted? You said you've got, part of your business is there as well. Did any of your team members get impacted by this earthquake directly?
Well, my wife, she's Moroccan. Her origins are from this village.
Oh, wow.
Village that was damaged, and so she lost quite a few family members.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's a little sad. But these people are, that's where their origins come from. They're originally a Jewish community, which Berber community, which are people from the mountains. And in fact, Israel is very much behind the rescue operations, as Israel is very attached to this area. So for them, it's like a shrine for them, this whole thing. And, they're very aware of the situation. So she comes from this area. And as I say, she lost a few of her family members. And this is the person I was saying that just walked 60 miles up the mountain. He's actually one of her uncles.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it's a little complicated to know what's going on, because I've never experienced something like this. I've never seen anything like this, but I mean, I'll probably know more once I get to Morocco.
Okay.
But my team in my office in Morocco are very much involved with helping as much as they can. So we're doing what we can.
Well, Martin, thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing what you do know of the situation there in Morocco. And our thoughts and prayers go out to your wife, her family, and all the people of Morocco that unfortunately have been impacted by this earthquake. So quite an unfortunate situation. And perhaps we can touch bases with you once you've actually touched ground in Morocco for further update.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to contact me, they can contact me on my USL number, which I sent you. I don't know if you want me to give it over the air.
Yeah, sure, you can do.
Yeah, so it's 954. It's a Florida number, 954-854-3389. And my email is Martin, MARTIN at global satellite, which is one word, .us.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to know more or help or whatever, if they contact me, I'll pass it through.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So Sofiane's saying that the problem right now is not food. The problem is shelter. And of course, before you can, I guess, start to even think about rebuilding, you've got to be able to clear out the debris. I think that particular effort is probably going to take some time. And also, as they continue to do that, clearing out the rubble and so forth, they'll continue to find more people, unfortunately, who have perished. So again, quite an unfortunate situation. But we'll continue to see what updates that we can get on this situation. And we'll certainly keep you all abreast of whatever additional information that we are able to get our hands on. So again, the death toll continues to rise, unfortunately, in Morocco, folks, as they, are finding people. It's now near 3,000. Rescuers continue to go through the rubble and try to find people. So just 3 hours ago, according to Al Jazeera, the numbers are pushing close to 3,000, risen above 2,800, as medics and rescuers continue their efforts to get to people. Most of them seem to be in remote areas, and it's difficult. So there's a BBC article here about Morocco earthquake, why authorities accept only limited international help. This is quite an interesting read. And basically, it said that offers from around the world have been pouring in, but the country has so far been selective in what it has chosen to accept. So a statement on Sunday from the Interior Ministry said that Morocco had responded in this particular phase to offers of support from the friendly nations of Spain, Qatar, UK, and the United Arab Emirates. Spain has sent a search and rescue unit with sniffer dogs, and the UK has deployed similar units as well. And there have been questions over why Morocco has been slow to accept these offers. So very, very interesting. French help is on standby, but the head of one rescue charity says that the aid workers have not been given the go-ahead from the Moroccan government as yet, and this is making the AFP news agency. Algeria, which cut diplomatic ties with its North African neighbor 2 years ago, said it could send about 80 specialized rescue workers from its civilian protection force. And there have been offers also from the United States, from Tunisia, Turkey, Taiwan, among others. And the decision over what assistance to welcome has been caught up by questions of sovereignty and geopolitics. Politics always plays a part, folks. Apparently, there's strained relations between France and Morocco, for instance, partly as a result of moves by the French president to get closer to Algeria. The French authorities have tried to play down any idea that they've been snubbed. And according to their foreign minister, Catherine Colonna, she's quoted by Reuters as saying, "This is a misplaced controversy. We're ready to help Morocco. It's a sovereign Moroccan decision, and it's up to them to decide." Morocco says it wants to maintain control and does not want to risk a potential chaotic situation with dozens of countries and organizations coming in to help. A lack of coordination in such cases would be counterproductive, authorities there have said. But government critics and activists, Mr. Mati Munjib, has said that it is the wrong response when help is desperately needed, especially in the more remote areas. He goes on to say, I think it's really an error to insist on sovereignty and national pride. This is not the moment to refuse because the aid is essential. Even developed countries accept outside help in disasters, he told the BBC. So Mr. Hussam El-Sharkawi, the regional director for the Middle East and North Africa for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, was reluctant to criticize the Moroccan authorities at such a difficult time, but argued that more outside help would inevitably be required. The organization is giving money to the local Red Crescent branch, but the IFRC also has specialist teams on standby ready to go into the country. So he was reported to have said that we have experience of 30 years in these types of scenarios. We know the playbook. We will need international assistance. The local response has done a fantastic job to date, but they are exhausted on the third day and they will need that additional help. And of course, yesterday, our guest, Sophine, and his friend were telling us that, the rescuers have not been sleeping at all. And you can imagine what 3-4 days worth of dealing in these very, very tragic circumstances, digging people out from under rubble and so on. The physical toll that the lack of sleep, in particular in these types of situations, will have on the body for sure. So a 4-person British team, including health, sanitation, and logistics experts from the charity UK Med, arrived in Morocco on Monday, and they described themselves as an advance party with others waiting to come. They'll travel south to Amizimiz, I think is how it's pronounced. Forgive me if it's wrong, where they will link up with the central rescue team and work with local health authorities, their team leader told the BBC. So, it's one of those things, folks, where it takes time. I suppose time is of the essence, but at the same time, as they said, they don't want people just there sort of doing their own thing. So, some people being critical of the government and other people saying that, listen, let's respect their right to sovereignty and to make their own decisions. And, they've accepted some help, but, others have said it's not enough and they need to do more. So entire villages, they say, have been wiped off the map. One story here says people in this village are either dead or in the hospital. I don't know exactly. 90 of the 200 residents have been confirmed dead, and many more are missing. So again, entire little villages and towns and mountaintops just completely wiped off the map. So, we'll see what assistance can be offered. But ultimately, governments around the world will have to do their part to assist if they're willing to accept. I mean, this is a thing, right? You always have to be willing to accept help if it's offered. So good morning to Luis. Good morning to Miss Amelia. Miss Brenda is here asking what else do they need? Sleeping bags, bedding, etc. I mean, I think the biggest problem is if you just send stuff in and there's no proper persons on the other end to receive it and they know what to do with it, then it's, it'll be like the situation in Haiti where it sits on the tarmac, or Puerto Rico, where water by the, thousands of gallons just sat in the tarmac after a major hurricane and didn't get to the people that actually needed it the most. This is very, very unfortunate. So Sophien says that the problem right now is not food. The problem is shelter. And they're getting, some rain and stuff as well. Alejandro says, if a country can afford to assist, what's wrong with that? But it should not be obligated if it doesn't fit the budget, and independent help should still be accepted either way. So, yeah, I mean, you can offer help, but in most instances, as you well know, you can offer people anything in the world that you want. If they're not willing to take it, then, your offer, I suppose, might be falling on deaf ears. So it's a bit of a give and take situation. Yes, countries are offering help, but the Moroccan government has to accept the help. And, maybe their concerns are somewhat legitimate ones in terms of how the rescue efforts and so on is being organized. And maybe the Moroccan government, who's not had an earthquake of this magnitude in over 100 years, also needs to recognize that they're in dire need of some assistance. And so, like all of us, sometimes we don't even recognize when we need help. Other people are saying, hey, you need help, take my help, let me help you. And we're trying to be the hero and trying to say, no, I'm fine. Miss Stacy, what happened to my apple cider vinegar today? So there's that. Quite unfortunate. I was trying to ascertain what the Moroccan population might be in the Cayman Islands. I haven't heard a whole lot about it, but I'm happy to hear a little bit more about that. Someone has just sent something from the Lions Club International Foundation, says that they're mobilizing $100,000 US for major catastrophic grant to assist Lions in providing earthquake relief throughout the region of Marrakesh in Morocco. Humanitarian crises of this magnitude occurs, Lions are ready to help. Your generous contributions to LCIF makes it possible for Lions to continue their vital service, and they're asking you to please donate to their disaster relief fund. So thank you very much for sharing this. We will post this up. I know that some people are critical of, I had people call me yesterday, say that they refuse to donate to the Red Cross, for example, because they're not pleased with how they've handled disasters in the past. Which is unfortunate. Maybe they need to do a little bit of PR work to alleviate some of these concerns. But they've said, listen, from the situation in Haiti, the reports that came out, and I think there might be some things about Haiti that are perhaps somewhat unique in terms of, trying to get help into Haiti. But there are so many people on the ground in Haiti, from gangs to corrupt politicians to corrupt community members who, were there just trying to take from the rescue efforts and the poor people that needed it the most, which was so incredibly unfortunate. My God. Ugh. That's why even our own people who were involved in the whole FIFA, scandal, like the people that were going to benefit the most from that, folks, were the poor children of Haiti who need a little glimmer of hope, even if it's through something like football. Our people, speaking about Jeff now, Jeff Webb, he was stealing money and making all these backdoor deals, and it directly impacted the country of Haiti and those poor kids. You've got to have a heart, folks, and you have to really be cognizant of how your actions impact other people. My God, I cannot imagine that he wouldn't have thought of that, Ugh. I don't know what to say. But so incredibly sad. But now we focus on the ongoing efforts here in terms of Morocco. If you want to contribute, Lion Center has something set up. I'm very, very hesitant because, unfortunately, I don't want to be responsible for sending funds overseas and not really being able to guarantee or know where those funds are going or how they're going to be helping people directly, because this is a problem when it's overseas, right? You have to have some degree of trust that it's going to be in the right hands, and that's challenging. So I encourage people that if you know, or if you are aware of any sort of, organization that has experience in relief and they will be using the money really to benefit the people of these countries, I think that is the most important way to go about it, to be quite frank and honest. And so we, want to encourage the people of Morocco to please try to remain positive. We know that this is obviously a very, very difficult time. And, the international help, it looks like some countries are definitely willing to assist. Hopefully now your government will step up to the plate and do what's necessary to assist the people. Yeah. All right, 936-2626 is the telephone number. And let me see here. We're going to move on to some of our other topics that we had planned for today. I'll also share the link, folks, for those of you who require that. I'm going to share the link here for you. Let me just grab it real quick, where you can make a donation to the Lions International Relief Fund. This person says, thanks for sharing. It's hard when we're so far away and want to help, but can't physically be there. Lions is in the region, are already mobilized and assisting affected persons. And I think this is exactly what you want, folks, people who know precisely what is happening there. You know, we're hearing from different people, but in all honesty, you know, that might be filtered through a number of different lenses. So Jim says egos, power addictions. My goodness. Anne says too much money goes to pay executives in the Red Cross. What a hot mess. Jim says it's not the people who don't want or need the help and would appreciate assistance in governments, as most governments work for themselves and not for the people. It's unfortunate. We saw the same thing as we celebrate the 19th anniversary of Hurricane Ivan. We saw the same thing after Hurricane Ivan. Our government, there was a British military ship right off of our coast. Our government was refusing international media, was refusing help. That was a government ran then by McKeever Bush and the UDP. They were refusing help because they didn't want people to know how bad it was. I'm thinking, what on earth, are you people crazy? It's going to impact our reputation. It's going to impact tourism. It's like, right now there is no tourism. Like, you need to help the people of this country. It is astonishing that governments can be so incredibly stupid when it comes to what is in the best interest of the people. And so there was a lot of stories in circulation. I mean, the ship was right there. They had water on board. They had all sorts of stuff that could really assist immediately. And I must say, you know, some people have been critical of the regiment, but one of the great things about the regiment is at least they're ready on the ground. So when we have another Hurricane Ivan, heaven forbid, or we have an earthquake that actually causes some damage or whatever, we do have the regiment who's out there training constantly. They know how to take salt water and make it into fresh water that can be used in emergency situations for drinking. They've got, you know, rescue vehicles that they can get into areas that otherwise might be problematic. They're out there constantly training in horrible mosquito-infested conditions in preparation of, you know, what could be a natural disaster happening right here in the Cayman Islands. So, you know, we've got them on the ground. We've got boots on the ground. We've got officers and different, you know, management in the regiment that is making sure that they're trained up as much as possible for what could potentially be coming. They've got satellite radios. They've got equipment. We've taken tours in the past of their camps and stuff like that. And it's important to have, you know, those resources available to the country if need be. So Brenda says that our government had just dissolved before Ivan. All powers were vested in the governor. These decisions weren't made locally. That is absolutely not true. That is 1,000% not true. McKeever Bush was making decisions. I can't recall about the dissolving of the government or not, but I can tell you without a doubt that he was making the decisions of whether or not to let people into this country. That had nothing to do with the governor. The governor is not going to let a British warship off the coast of the Cayman Islands in to assist the people. That's actually ludicrous to think that that could even happen. Believe me, it was very. I'll double check about the dissolution of the government because I can't recall that particular detail, but I can tell you without fear of contradiction that this was very much a political decision. No two ways about it. It was covered extensively at the time, and that is why I remember it. Let me see if I can actually find something about it, and I'll tell you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I want to let you know that I, for one, is happy that you have that program from Health City on Tuesdays. I have a lot to be thankful for. The Health City, I have a lot to be thankful for, more than a lot. I can't name. To God, first of all, I have been from doctor to doctor. The test for my kidney, and one or two hospitals as well, not naming the hospitals. And each doctor from the hospital say, I remember telling me, oh, well, in Europe, they have that same problem. And because he was European, and you'll get over that. And I couldn't believe it. Is this man a doctor or not? So when I went to Health City, they run all the tests and stuff on my kidney, because I used to have pain in my in the back where the kidney, but it was always on the right side, and I could not get a straight answer from anybody. And anyway, when I went to Health City, Dr. George, he's no longer there. Well, he had other names too, but the English one I could remember. He was so outright and explained everything after they'd done their tests and whatnot. I had to decide whether to remove my left kidney because they had seen cancer in it. And that was a decision I couldn't come to God as well. I should have put my faith more in God and put my faith more in the doctor that was giving me all this advice, their tests and whatnot. Anyhow, I made up my mind, and they took out my left kidney altogether. And they retested. My husband was there when they took it out. I didn't have any pain afterwards, and it was 60% cancerous. And they took out my adrenal gland as well. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but on the same side. I never had any more problems. When I first got it out, I had to go and, get tested again, or they examined me again and to see if everything was okay for 1 full year. And I still go and get tested. My doctor now, my internist now, is Dr. Sandeep and Dr. Tarun. Anyway, I'm thankful for you for bringing that program. And you were right, Makeba did run the island at that time of 2004, because I got training from Red Cross for months and months and months, and I was down at the West Bay Primary School Hall, which I believe I told you several times, or could have been somebody else, or could have been Radio Cayman. That's supposed to hold approximately 350 people. We had over 400, nearly 500 in there, along with the golden age people and some people that were divers at Spanish Bay Reef at the time. We no longer have Spanish Bay Reef. And he ran the show. From then, he came to visit us at the shelter. I don't know how many other places he went, but he was running the show. You're right, Sandy. Absolutely right. And from then, I've been begging for for district emergency centers, especially in West Bay, because we're growing and growing and growing. Cayman is growing and growing and growing. Now, some of our workers here don't have good shelters. Some of them, I wouldn't put my doggy in some of the places that they have to live. Now, if God forbid, and I hope He continue to bless us, that we don't have really bad weather that people have to go to shelters, because we would not have enough place. We seem to be building other things and other things that is unnecessary. To me, so many buildings are closed up and whatnot. We don't have enough. And it was only the Red Cross and one doctor, Ruthlyn, I can't remember her name, and 2 nurses. With that amount of people down there, of course, the Golden Age people were there, which was excellent. They're excellent people. And God bless us all and help us that we would not have any kind of emergency. But what I was there, which my home didn't get any damage. My husband was flying after that, up and down, up and down, up and down, taking people out because they were scared. They were everything else. So I mean, and I had not so long lost my dear mother that was a mother and a father. But that's my story. I don't know, and we don't know, you don't know when emergency is going to hit us. And we don't have enough shelters. That is one thing for sure.
Okay,
So
thank you, Carla.
I'm going to end this now,
Yes.
and I thank you for listening to me.
Really
and
appreciate
good
it.
morning to everybody out there.
I appreciate it. So I was trying to remember actually what the dates were in relation to this. And there's quite a number of articles online about the government's response at the time. And all of the correspondence being sent out in relation to Hurricane Ivan was definitely coming from Makiva Bush, who was leader of government business at the time, as well as Minister of Tourism. And one thing here that talks about the prorogan of the government, it says that the year of Hurricane Ivan, and this is a document, some bits and pieces of it was redacted. It looks like an email, partially redacted from January of 2005, which would have been the January following Hurricane Ivan. It specifically says the year of Hurricane Ivan, which they have the dates down as September 11th through the 13th. Before Ivan, strong budget and economy bode fair for re-election of Makiva Bush's UDP government in November. So the election actually wasn't scheduled until November. It says elections have now been postponed until May of 2005. Remarkable progress in recovery from Ivan, but still a long way to go. Constitutional reform temporarily shelved, but perceived lack of UK support since Ivan and uncertain implications of EU savings directives may engender renewed calls and election campaign for greater autonomy. And these are some of the details that were coming out of an annual review for 2004. Case for UKG contribution, meanwhile, to Cayman's National Recovery Fund, permanent increase in staffing necessary to achieve UKG objectives. But all of the documentation that speaks to who was actually handling the post-Ivan situation within days, the correspondence and stuff that was going out was going from Makiva Bush and signed leader of government business and minister of tourism. So this talks about politically the quite interestingly the impact of Hurricane Ivan on the UDP government, Ivan and its early aftermath. So this looks like quite an interesting document. I've actually never seen this particular one before. But yeah, I mean, there are letters here to both the UK and other agencies coming directly days after the storm, coming directly from the desk of Mr. McKeeva Bush. Caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra.
Morning.
Not calling for an argument or anything,
Mhm.
but I just want to say that 2004 was an elections year, and the government, as it usually does, 3 months before elections, had dissolved on the 5th day of September. And I'm sure you know that when the government dissolves, all powers then vest in the governor. I am not contradicting anyone to say that before that or leading up to the 5th, that McKeeva Bush wasn't the leader of the government business. What I am saying is that we no longer had a government. It had dissolved, or however they do it. And all of the decisions for Cayman were being made in England, even to black it out on English television. And I know this because my brother was in university there at the time, and he couldn't see anything that was happening here. It was all blacked out.
Well, someone involved politically says that that's not correct. The cabinet still retains its powers, and he was very much in control.
The ministers, as I said, they stay in office for a few weeks afterwards. I think it is 6 weeks or something like that before the actual elections. But in other words, we don't have a sitting of the House and so on. And what I do clearly remember.
But he was still in the position of.
Yeah, let me just say, I don't know what position he was in. We know how it works here. We never know the real story. But what I do remember is that it was the first time that the opposition and the ex-government, I'm going to say, and the leader of the opposition, which was Kurt Tibbetts at the time, they all met and they agreed that Cayman needed help, but they were not able to do anything for the country because they were not getting permission to accept the assistance that was being offered. The US offered, Canada offered, Jamaica offered, and that British ship that came in here didn't come here to assist anyone. They just happened to be in the Caribbean, and they came ashore to assess the island, not to assist, but to assess. So maybe someone that was part of the LA, as they called it back then, who's not biased, should call in and elaborate on this a little bit. One thing I will agree with, because I did ask questions about this afterwards, because I can never understand why they don't allow the media in here like they do in other places, you know, to cover the hurricane when it's actually happening. But as far as one person making decisions to deprive us of assistance, I do not agree with that. And if you look back in the Hansards from 2004, you will see that the House did dissolve on the 5th day of September, exactly 1 week before Ivan hit us. I am not confused about the date of Ivan, neither am I confused about what happened leading up to Ivan. I read up on these things because I want to know, and I also want to have a clear understanding. I don't listen to people and parrot them. That's why I always encourage people to read and know your history. Do not allow people to edit that history. Just like the controversy yesterday about it being the anniversary of Ivan. It is not. That was done because those who live amongst us acknowledge what happened on the 11th of September in New York. As usual, Cayman has to become what everyone else is or what they want us to become. We cannot have our own identity, even with our history, even in devastation. So I would encourage you to research it.
Yes, I'm having a look here and I found some very, very interesting things. So let's review some of these. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so one of the interesting things that I have found right here is actually, again, correspondence within days of the storm coming from Mr. Bush to the outside world, not from anybody else. And here's one that was really quite interesting. I see Miss Janet saying that her memory, if her memory serves her correctly, she thinks the reason why the military ship left was because Grenada got hit first and was devastated. Well, let us recall the events of actually what happened in relation to the military response and the ship that was here. So here we are. This is from September the 29th of 2022. Military, it says HMS Medway heads to the Cayman Islands after hurricane. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. Not, yeah. I thought that said Ivan. Hold on a second. That's not the right one. I'm gonna give you all the name. So we were not the only ones impacted or needing assistance at the time, but let me just find out where they went first, because I think, Miss Janet, that you're actually correct that oh gosh, let me see here now. In terms of where, and I mean, I wish someone who actually has a very good memory of, or like the caller said, who was actually involved at the time in this, could provide, let me see. So there was a CNN report. There was stuff directly from the leader of government business, as he would have been called at the time. And let me just see. And he was actually the one providing all of the updates on. He was the McKeever Bush was the one who was actually providing all of the updates on the Ivan recovery. There was one that I just saw that was from, let me give you, literally days after it. It didn't come from anybody else. It didn't come from the UK or anybody else. That came directly from Mr. Bush. And I remember, because at the time, there were those of us who were watching very, very carefully the response of the government. And let me just see here where this is. And unfortunately, it was less than professional, to be honest. There was a lot of people who were like, "What on earth is the government doing?" The government was still very much running the country. So I'm just trying to find. So a letter from the Cayman Islands government. I think this one is dated. Let me just see here. October of 2004. This comes from the Honorable McKeever Bush, leader of government and Minister of Tourism, Environment, Development, and Commerce. And that was dated October the 8th of 2004. Again, given the update, this actually showed up on the Cayman, on the UK Parliament's website. So he was actually providing the UK with documentation and updates on what was happening here. Caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra. I'm not contradicting what that caller just said, but the hurricane actually hit us on September 11th. The eye crossed us on the 12th. So a lot of people has it confused. I have a portfolio, a binder that I made, and I'm looking at it right now, and I created it on the 15th of September at 8:06 p.m. I was at that time an assistant accountant at Banco de Brazil in Lisbon Square. So we were all there until they made us evacuate. So it did happen on September 11th, and it went through to till the 12th of September. So a lot of people are going to have the dates off, but it's just the fact that it happened. I don't think that 911 should be getting any kind of publicity for Ivan. I mean, 911, yes, did happen September 11th. Ivan happened September 11th. I think the thing is we need to stop trying to be like everyone else and be unique and be one, right? Stop playing the blaming game. Whichever government was in. They did wrong, they did right. They stand by the people, they did not stand by the people. Which government do it? Do you think this government is any better? Honestly speaking.
Well, we haven't seen them handle a disaster. So I mean, I don't know.
Thank God they have not handled over a disaster. But they're all in there for one thing, for their egoistic and dirty ways, their power. They abuse the power that they have, and some of them, and then the others that have power do nothing. So they're all in there for the same thing, to benefit themselves, their family, and their friends. And that's it. So if the people of Cayman don't open their eyes and realize what time it is, this island is doomed. Doomer than
Well,
what it's already is.
let me say this in terms of what we, and I more than anybody else probably believe in holding governments responsible for what they do. But I think there are a lot of people who want to hold governments responsible for stuff that they have nothing to do with. So yesterday, somebody shared with me that there was some discussion. I think you're probably in one of these groups where people were calling down damnation in this government because some young Caymanian was trying to take money to the bank to, I guess, for a purchase of a house or whatever, and he needed to have his source of funds. And they're like, well, why is the government allowing this to happen? I don't understand how a situation like that is being blamed on the government. Can you help me understand what the logic?
No, that is completely different. If you don't
Yeah,
have
but
source of,
my problem is this, right? People are prepared to blame governments for stuff, in particular this government, for stuff that they have nothing to do with. We have compliance and KYC requirements in place. So at what point are we going to say that those things have nothing to do with the government of the day? We need those in order to try to remain off of blacklists and gray lists. And
little common sense comes in, right? We know for a fact that yes, there's a government. Yes, they can implement certain rules and also break certain rules, right? But when it comes to that kind of activity or issues, I think that is SEMA, right? This is sense now. Come on, people. I mean, yes, the government can say, put a draft and say, you know what, SEMA, let's try to work with the people, hold the interest rate down, or give them time, or
no. I'm talking about documentation. No, let's be very, very specific.
You cannot blame government for documentation. It's a bank policy. We all
Exactly. So how is it that yesterday this government was getting cursed out in one of these groups for not doing their job and not helping the people of the Cayman Islands because the banks demand source of funds, which is something for compliance reasons that we need to have.
I don't know anything about. I know I'm in a lot of groups, but I know nothing about a young man buying no house or anything like that. So I feel it for him. But your source of funds is needed. We're blacklisted, we're gray listed, we're yellow listed. What else do you want? We're considered an island for money laundering because so much time Americans come here to evade taxes. So this is what we get. This is our thank you. So you have to abide by the rules. I cannot go into the bank. Yes, I do not agree with what the bank do. I cannot go into the bank and put an extra dollar in my account because they want to question. I have to provide it, right? It is what it is. Those kind of things we cannot blame the government for. There's other stuff, okay, yes, government is responsible for, but you can't blame the government for bank policies. Remember, the bank is not owned by the government, and the bank is not owned by no Caymanians. The banks are owned all by expats. They're here to earn service, right? So it's either we can do the things.
Okay, let me I don't want to get too off track this morning, but someone has just sent me, and I thank this caller all the way from Bermuda who's helping to clarify the situation. And I do see Kevin has joined in as well. So I think Kevin wants to assist now with helping clarify some of this. So thank you so much, caller. All right. So thank you so much to our Bermudan counterpart has sent the following, which was from reliefweb.international. It says Bermuda Regiment to assist in cleanup program in the Cayman Islands. And what they said was on the recommendation of the National Recovery Committee, Cabinet, meaning the Cayman Islands Cabinet, this is September the 25th, literally weeks after Ivan, Cabinet agreed today to ask the Bermuda government to provide a contingent of more than 50 officers for the Bermuda Regiment for 1 month, from the Bermuda Regiment for 1 month. The contingent, which carried out a similar humanitarian role in Bermuda following Hurricane Fabian's impact on the island last year, could arrive as early as the end of next week. So, Kevin, good morning. There's no doubt, again, who was running the island at the time, and it was very much cabinet still making those decisions.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Sonny. Good morning, Cayman.
The governor at the time would have been Governor Dinwiddie, who has since passed away. So obviously, his memory, but it does mention him in here that the governor congratulated Mr. Carter for the determination for which his department was addressing the whole cleanup process. So there was a National Recovery Committee that was put in place at that time as well. including people. The director of environmental health, Roy Del Carter, said that his department was powering itself up for the enormous task of clearing debris from after the hurricane. Mark Scotland seems like he was involved in the cleanup. The Honorable Makiva Bush reported that community cleanup teams are already at work in West Bay. So it was very much the government that was leading the charge on this.
Yeah. And Sandy, I wanted just to kind of really clarify kind of the dates, the 11th to 12th. So I looked back at the National Hurricane Center's records and looked at when the impact actually took place. So this information is really coming from the officials who actually do the tracking. And so on September 11th, sometime mid-morning, around 10, 11 o'clock, the sister islands began experiencing tropical storm force winds, and that extended over to Grand Cayman later that afternoon and into the evening. It was tropical storm force winds. It wasn't hurricane force winds until after the wee hours of the morning on the 12th. So the 12th is when the center or the worst of Hurricane Ivan passed by the Cayman Islands, or Grand Cayman specifically. However, we began experiencing a lot of the impacts because, you know, the core, where the right around the eye of the hurricane, that's where the strongest winds are. And depending on the size of the system, you have hurricane winds that extend so many miles, and then you have tropical storm force winds that extend so many miles, a much further amount of miles away from the center. So on the 11th is when we started to experience the earlier impacts, the bands and the sustained tropical storm force winds. And then, of course, as it approached and got closer to us, we had hurricane force winds, sustained hurricane force winds of Cat 4 strength, because it also was weakening as it was passing Cayman, or Grand Cayman, that is. And then as soon as it passed Grand Cayman, it started to strengthen. So as it was going south of Jamaica, it went to Cat 5, and in between Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, it briefly had an eye wall cycle where it changed out its eye. And usually when that happens, it starts to weaken briefly. And so we had a few hours of it being technically a Category 4, which is when it was passing us. And as soon, literally as it passed, it then became a Cat 5 again before entering the Gulf of Mexico. And then it went all the way up through the Panhandle. It went all the way up through many of the East Coast states. It looped all the way around, came back over Florida once again, entered the Gulf and on into Texas. This thing just did not want to die. It was one of those storms that lasted quite some time. It broke a lot of history records at the time. I think Hurricane Dorian actually beat Ivan's record and stuff after that. But at the time, it was considered the most powerful storm on record.
Okay. Do you remember anything in relation to would you have been at Cayman 27 at that time?
No, I actually was still in high school. It was my senior year of high school, but I was actually working as a special constable then. So I, at the time, was right following Ivan. I was one of the folks that did go out to Mariners Cove, because remember Mariners Cove had ended up in the middle of the street, and we started searching for anyone that might have possibly been trapped inside there. And then I was all over from there after that. But no, it was my senior year of high school, and then I actually left Cayman and finished my last year in Florida, because Triple C, which is the school that I went to, was it took a heavy hit, and I didn't want to have to wait around and potentially have a 2 years from my senior year, because I didn't know when Triple C was going to get up and running, because I believe the storm surge, the water it really completely covered the first floor. Triple C took a bad hit, which is why they started to operate out of the Church of God's Family Life Center in Walker's Road. But yeah, I do remember some of the politics. I sent an article to you from the Sun Sentinel as well, if you want to use that. It's one of those that's under a paywall, but I did screenshot a snippet about who.
Oh, let me look at this. Yeah, I couldn't get. So what was the date of this article, by the way?
Sorry, let me take a quick look at that.
Yeah. So it says that again, talking about who was responding, Mr. Bush, it says that the lack of housing for homeless staff members is now one of the biggest problems facing law firms, banks, trust companies, and other businesses, Mr. Bush said. So, all of the public relations, everything was being handled by Mr. Bush. There was nobody else speaking on behalf of the Cayman Islands. It goes on to say tourism, Cayman's other moneymaker, will take longer to rebound. By mid-October, Bush expects to welcome back the first post-COVID cruise ships, which will bring the bulk of Cayman's visitors, more than 15,000 passengers a day, while some resorts will require large-scale repairs. Bush, who is also the Minister of Tourism, said, blah, blah, blah. So again, Mr. Bush's name was all over everything. He was the driving force.
Yeah, this
And one
article
thing
was
we
published
know
about
about
a month
Mr. Bush,
after, October 19th, and then it was updated on January the 30th. I guess that's when they were talking about cruise ships, because it took some time for the cruise ships to get back. But if I remember, correctly, that yes, Mr. Bush was in power. He made all of the decisions. I remember a lot of my friends and stuff overseas were, upset that they couldn't get a whole lot of news about Cayman. They were hearing stuff from all these other places that were impacted, but very little coming out of Cayman, because again, from what I understood, they were the government was trying to hide a lot of the facts that, Cayman was seriously devastated. And again, I remember a lot of people at that time really complaining, why are we turning away help? Why are we turning away help? We need the help. I will say eventually some military folks came on shore, because like when fosters and stuff started to open up. And I remember again when I was working as a special constable at the time, I remember getting the support we were getting the support of armed military personnel to help secure places such as like fosters and stuff, where there's these long lines, and they were out there with their very heavy arms, because at the time there were some looting concerns that were starting to arise.
Oh yes, I
I
remember
was
there was
underneath a curfew. I know they had made contact with a lot of the rent-a-car companies, and a lot of the police fleet was rent-a-cars, jeeps, and other things that was going all about. But we did eventually get some help, but it was pretty short-lived, and it was not. They were able to do a lot more for us, but it was definitely refused, and people at the time were up in arms about it.
We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Sandra, good morning.
Good morning, dear.
You're doing a good job as usual. But
Thank you, my dear.
I really want forget about McKee, but we already ruined things. I want to hear about Prospect, the chaos at Prospect, please.
Okay, my dear.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
It's my third time I call in.
Yeah, so thanks. I really appreciate it.
I want going, darling.
Yeah, I know, but
hope for the
listen,
best.
but the response from governments is something that we always have to be
I'll never fight with that.
yeah,
I
you know,
understand
so
but my daughter goes Prospect. I need to know what's going on.
okay.
Please.
Thank you, my
Thank
dear.
you.
Yes, I mean, what's the old saying, Kevin, that if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. So
Yep.
this isn't we're not having this discussion this morning and on the anniversary of the storm because of any, whatever towards Mr. Bush. We're just trying to get the facts clarified. Because
Exactly.
as the previous caller said, do we think this government would do a better job? Well, I mean, now we've had a post-COVID environment where they've gone through that disaster somewhat. So we have to be mindful of how governments handle disasters. We've talked about the poor response of the last administration going into Ivan. So COVID, my apologies, where, literally we had a ship that was on its way from Jamaica, the Italian ship that was headed here from Jamaica. The Jamaican authorities had turned away because they didn't want COVID on their shores. And our government, the leader of our government, Premier, Alden McLaughlin, was in a WhatsApp group for Prospect telling people to stop listening to CMR. They're fear mongering. That's not why the ship was turned away from Jamaica. and it did record time. I don't know how it got here so quickly, but it was here before sunset the exact same day from when Jamaica turned them around because they wanted to disembark. And we know how poorly the cruise industry handled COVID, right? They were all about their bottom line and all about money. So they made it here in record time, hoping that they could get in. And of course, they had a government that was, let's worry more about tourism than the health, life, and well-being and safety of our people. And I have the screenshots to prove it. It's on our website. Our premier, Alden McLaughlin, telling people, don't listen to CMR. They're fear-mongering. Nobody in that ship had COVID. We're going to let them in, blah, blah, blah. And because of that single article and the response that got, I imagine his phone would have been blowing up exponentially. The people of this country said, no, absolutely not. We're not going to put up with this. And finally, the government had to retreat. But yet the weeks after that, after COVID was going full blown all over the world, once again, our government was cowtailing to the cruise sector and saying, oh yeah, let's let them in. We can work it out. You can still come here safely, and having all these secret meetings that were not so secret. And this is the reality of what was going on in this country. So that is why it is important to remember history as accurately as possible. And that's why I'm so glad that at least we have some recordings, Kevin, through news media and others, through statements. Like I said, there's a number of statements within days of this incident that were coming out of the office of Mr. Bush. He was sending letters to the UK Parliament. That's on their website. And there's others shortly after as well, where he was giving the position of what was happening with the country. So he was still very much running the country. And that is why, even though, Parliament might be prorogued, where yes, they're not going to be meeting, that does not mean that there's no government in place and that there's nobody running the country. That would be an impossibility. In the UK, the governor can't run the country like that. So that is why cabinet continues to be able to make decisions. We've seen it even with the last election. Literally weeks before the election was called, although they already had prorogued Parliament, what were they doing? They were pushing through contracts. They were signing the regen contract. They were, getting all these foreign offices staffed up, signing off on those. And that was one of the criticisms of the Auditor General, is once you prorogued Parliament, unless there's some sort of national emergency, why is the government, yes, they're still in place, why are they making these types of contracts and decisions that is going to bind the next government that's to follow? And some instances, they're purposely trying to bind their hands, and they're doing it on purpose to push through things that, just in case we don't get back in, let's make sure all these things are already in place and the government has no choice. Because you tell me now, if the government tried to renege, for example, on the regen project after the PPM administration signed it days before, how many concessions did they sign within the last month before they got out of office? So they're still handling the government of the business. Cabinet is still very much getting things done. Caller, good morning.
Morning. This regen project, we better look at carefully.
Well, I dare say that's what's taken so long, because it is being looked at.
But this is going to be serious. But anyhow, that's not the reason why I called. You see, when you had the lockdown, did you notice that there wasn't a declaration of a state of emergency?
The lockdown in terms of COVID?
COVID, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do we have declarations of state of emergencies in this country?
Yes.
Okay.
You see, the reason why it didn't happen with COVID, not that the UK governor didn't want it to happen, but the reason why it didn't happen is because the politicians said, well, you know what? What's going to happen to us if we do that is the same thing that happened during Hurricane Ivan. Once a declaration of emergency is made, the politicians have to step aside and the governor takes over.
So you're saying that during Ivan, there was a declaration of state of emergency?
Yes. Yeah. And what the problem was is that the governor took over.
When was that declaration done?
I don't know. I don't have the date. I don't have the date.
Well, I mean, we need to verify this
Well,
because from all accounts, Mr. Bush was running the
everything,
show.
well, Bush can have his say, okay? But the reason why things played out the way it was is because people in the certain industries in the Cayman Islands sat around the table with the governor to decide what would happen going forward, who knew nothing about managing a hurricane. Now, thankfully, a lot of progress has been made in emergency management since then. But what I'm saying to you is that the government of the Cayman Islands, when we think of MPs, they are used by the UK to do the day-to-day operations in the Cayman Islands. The one who retains the authority is the UK government through this phrase they call on behalf of His Majesty. That's where the authority resides. The responsibility is to the elected members. But in certain situations, they can be put aside and the UK can deal with it directly. What the PPM did in COVID was to say, you know what, Cabinet isn't going to make such a declaration because that would push them aside and put the UK in charge. You notice how the governor and the premier were sitting side by side, and every time the premier said something, the governor felt that he needed to say something as well. What you saw right there is the desire to have the control about what would happen. I wasn't in favor, well, initially when it took place, because we didn't know what was going on. I took the position that, okay, let's lock the borders till we figure out what's going on. It didn't take long to figure out what was going on. And I felt from very early, I think it was like July or something like that, that we should devise a plan to bring ourselves back out of that situation, because locking the country down in the way that they were saying wasn't the right thing to do. However, if the government of the time had not done things the way they did, it would not have been the local government making decisions. It would have been the UK making decisions. I don't have the reference to the event that locked down Cayman during Hurricane Ivan on my fingertips. That was a long time ago.
Well, I mean, I suggest you find it because I'm looking high and low and I don't see anything about. In fact, on the 14th of September, literally days after, there were radio statements and radio announcements being made by both the governor and the leader of government business. And I don't see any mention here of the state of emergency that you're talking about. So in a statement released yesterday, which would have been the 13th, right after the storm hit, CIG, and this is coming from the government, talks about the extensive water damage to a number of buildings. The Cayman Islands CIG is focusing on 4 priority areas. And they were even talking about reopening the country the week after.
Yeah, well,
so it says here that the police will be assisted by personnel of HMS Richmond, which I'm assuming is the auxiliary warship that was, so it says working with, this is point number 3, working with HMS Richmond and the auxiliary ship Wave Runner. Both ships are currently offshore, and the captain of HMS Richmond is preparing the ship's helicopter to undertake a test flight. If the test flight is successful, area surveillance will begin, allowing an effective assessment of priorities. So people who say that the UK or those ships didn't do anything at all, maybe they didn't do as much as y'all wanted them to do, but I would not go as far as saying that they didn't do anything at all.
Ivan could have been handled differently. Like I
well,
said,
everything in hindsight can be handled differently, Denny.
No.
That's the benefit of hindsight.
No. This is why I said, thankfully, we've made progress.
Cabinet Secretary was Oric Connor at the time. Talking about, he's even making a statement. The Cayman Islands has picked itself up from hurricanes in the past. This is a tremendous team spirit here, and we're working together to rebuild and regroup. So all of the responses coming from the government, and I mean the elected government, and cabinet secretaries and stuff like that.
What I just told you was my memory of what happened.
Well, I need your memory to be backed up by some facts if you can find it.
Well, I hear that. I get that a lot.
So let's see where this state of emergency was issued.
What you could do is what you did the last time when I told you something about national importance. You could call Franz Manderson.
Well, was he deputy governor at the time?
No,
I don't kind of think so. So
no, I don't. No, he wasn't, but I think he would be aware.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know if he's the go-to for every little bit of information, but
I was just doing some research, and it looks like Cayman was in fact placed under a state of emergency for 3 weeks, and it was under the control of the British-appointed Governor Bruce Dinwiddie and a hurricane committee.
So that was the hurricane committee that I was talking about earlier.
Yep.
Okay.
So we were following Ivan. There was a state of emergency issued for the Cayman Islands for 3 weeks.
Okay.
What was the date? What was the date that was issued?
I'm trying to find that. It was in a BBC article that had some quotes.
Yeah.
The reason this is
So is that how we were able to do the curfew and that sort of stuff?
That's right. And something else that people are not understanding, the PPM told, and I made a big deal about it when it was occurring, but of course I just get ignored, right? But the public was sold that the regiment was devised to help in the cleanup in the aftermath of hurricanes. That's not the reason why the regiment was put in place. The regiment is an army, okay? And armies are about killing, okay? That's the reason the army was created. Yeah, they'll be used to help and assistance of hurricanes. But I believe that when the government is trying to sell the public something, you need to be truthful about it. And live on Facebook in the Georgetown Town Hall, Kenneth Bryan had a meeting asking the public about what they thought. In that meeting, Mr. Howell admitted during that meeting that yes, it was a military that was being established. Right? I don't like when we're not told the real reasons why things are being done, and I don't want to hear from idiots about, well, that's how government operates. That crap. Okay? You can't have legitimate consent from people about things by lying to them about the reasons why it's being done in the first place. Because if you tell them the truth, what they say might be different. And I noticed that on your program this morning during the health segment, one of your guests sort of like lamented that democracy got in the way. Listen, the world is tending towards a more tyrannical way of doing things. That is not going to help us. It will not end well. The last time the world thought that human rights and so forth didn't matter, we had a world war. Okay, we're not immune from it happening again. Don't be an idiot. Rights are important. The democratic process is important. But I'm going
to remind you, you're coming up in 12 minutes now, Denny.
Okay, well,
I need you to wrap it up.
Well, the point that I was calling about was that there was a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And in COVID, there wasn't a state of emergency. Now emergency was used, that word was used, but they didn't actually declare a state of emergency. And that allowed the local government to retain control. And that's why you saw a
So the word was used, but it wasn't declared?
The word emergency was being used in discussion. Like when you talk about what's happening, this is an pandemic, this is an emergency. The cabinet didn't sit down and say, this is a state of emergency, because it would have handed the power to the UK government. And
So you agree that the local government was the ones who were in power?
For COVID, yes. But that
But
wasn't.
No, I was talking about Hurricane Ivan, actually. But anyway, okay, leave us there. You're over 12 minutes. If you can't say it in 12 minutes or less, I think you might need a classroom. Thank you very much. So Cindy says Danny is right. The declaration was actually made on the evening or night of September the 11th when the storm shifted further south under Jamaica and we were in the direct path. This was based on information from the National Hurricane Center and the CI National Weather Service, Mr. Sambula. It was a televised message from the governor before he signed off and wished the island well. So that was the declaration. What is it called? Is it actually a state of emergency? Cindy, thank you for clarifying that. Darlene says, and I heard from our locals that the foreigners were grabbing up food and everything else that were supposed to be for the people of the island. They were sending overseas to their countries that made our locals go lacking for basic things. I don't think that's true at all. There was nothing leaving this island during Hurricane Ivan. How would it have been leaving, Miss Darlene? Sometimes you got to pick sense from nonsense when people start telling you stuff. There was nothing leaving Cayman at all because of the total destruction. You were lucky if you were able to get anything in, much less leaving. So yeah. Ms. Brenda saying call Premier Panton and have him explain what happens when the government is dissolved. I'm pretty sure Premier Panton's actually in cabinet this morning. But I think we all know that cabinet remains in power. That's why, like I said, they're signing off on contracts and they're making all kinds of decisions. Just read the Auditor General's report. It's pretty clear what happens. They continue to run the show without the benefit of Parliament having to meet. Denver says, yeah, and in the next election, they'll be calling on Mac to help to form the next government. Well, the man said he's retiring, Denver. So how are you going to call in a retired man? Y'all have forgotten that he said that, huh? All right, one can criticize Mr. Bush for other issues, but as it relates to allowing the media in the country, I agree with him, says Selvin. The media can make or break a country's ability to recover. Okay. Let us remember the decision was made not to allow the media played out well as the country recovered in amazing time. I don't think that had anything to do with how we recovered. I don't think it had anything to do with allowing the media in or not. Somebody said, please clarify which Darlene. That was Miss Darlene McKenzie. We do have two Darlenes that are on the program. So we will attribute the correct person, the correct Darlene, to that comment. Do you think that Kevin, as someone who's worked in disaster relief, I mean, you were part of the response during COVID with the Florida team there. Do you think that keeping people in the dark and keeping the media out helps in cases of a natural disaster?
Absolutely not. The media definitely has a huge role to play. In fact, I'm still currently doing that with Hurricane Ian, even though I am not actually deployed. I am the coordinator for the West Central Florida region for public information officers in Florida's deployments missions. And so we do have people currently deployed for those that were currently impacted in Ian. Because that hurricane did not impact an area that was as highly populated, media don't necessarily cover it as much. So we are fighting for media coverage to get information to some of those areas that are hard hit. And we have put a lot of resources and time and effort to ensure the communication flow is getting out. Imagine if they did not know where to go for relief items or any type of thing. I mean, you depend on media to get that information out there. In fact, when media brings it to the attention of people, you allow for people to also help out with the relief support where they could donate money and funds and items that might be needed for those who have a need. I'll use the whole entire earthquake scenario. A lot of people in Cayman might not have known about Morocco's going through its trouble right now with all of the earthquakes. However, using this platform here on Cayman Mall Road, I bet you that it got to more and more people who now are offering, whether it's prayers or some sort of support to try to bring relief there. If there was no media to do that, how else would you know? You wouldn't.
It's like people still operate with this concept that ignorance is bliss.
And it's so needed to at least, and it's all about getting the right information out there at the right time from the right person, because ultimately that's what saves lives. We have to ensure that the information that the media does have is also accurate information. And so there's sometimes where media gets blamed really bad. It's because they're not getting information and they're going to rely on sources that might not be as reliable. And unfortunately, that picks up traction. However, if you have people working with the media, giving them the accurate information, there's no reason for that accurate information to not be spread to those who are following that media organization. So that's why it's so critical, especially for governments, to have well-trained, qualified, skilled public relations individuals within their departments, so anytime that they have a crisis situation and they need to get messages out there, they are able to do so effectively. So ultimately, everyone benefits from it. But when you are quiet, and unfortunately, Cayman has a history of not necessarily doing very great at public relations when it comes to getting that message out there. And so that is something that really needs to change, because there's so much good things, so much amazing things that's going on within the civil service. However, the things that you want to hear a lot louder are the negative things, because the messages are not getting out there. So if they're able to at least
and listen, let's be very, very clear as well. I mean, Selvin is saying, yes, if media can do it without bias and sensationalism, it's not a question of bias. Everything that you get has a bias to it. I mean, when you think about it, even run-of-the-mill reports from GIS, right? They're only going to share the positive things that government are doing, the failures in our schools, the failures of, the Francis Bodden Children's Home. Do they ever report on those things? Have you ever seen GIS send out a press release about those things? No. So the fact that they only send you certain types of press releases, that alone is a biased perspective.
Indeed.
But y'all are not thinking about that as bias, because you're like, oh, well, they're just telling us Red Bay Primary has a new segment being added on. Yeah. It's interesting that that's coming out this week from the Department of Education, when they've not really said much about the ongoing issues at Prospect Primary and how they intend to address those, if at all. And so that's a little bit of a red herring to kind of, make people go in this direction. Like, oh, look at the positive things that the Department of Education Services is doing and the ministry is doing. Right. What about this big question, like the previous caller? What's going on at Prospect Primary? I've got a grandchild that goes there. Unfortunately, we don't really have much more by way of an update. Once again, the government, the education minister, the ministry, all these responsible line of, chain of command individuals have not said a single word. So all we hear are further complaints from parents who are saying, well, this has been my personal experience. This is what the problems are from my perspective. So we can sit here all day long and talk about the problems as media, and we're not getting any response to how those problems are going to be addressed, what the solutions are, or any of that. I mean, we're having people saying that, listen, this new principal at Prospect Primary is not the woman for the job. And they had a Caymanian as deputy principal acting for a little bit in the position. And for whatever reason, they've refused to give her the position.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the old game that people used to play, telephone, I think is what it was called, where, you start off with one message and then it continues on and on. People are adding things. Well, when officials are not giving out information, You're going to get all these WhatsApp forward messages and social media comments and things, and people are going to overhear conversations and have their own interpretation, and it's going to evolve in a nightmare, which is mainly unfixable because you can't undo what you've already heard. Really, you can't.
Exactly.
And so, when if you have folks, I mean, there's no perfect way of doing it. There's no exact science doing it, but there are ways and strategies that you can implement in order to get on top of the message, give timely updates. So you give them
Listen, the more people share, in my opinion, the more transparent you are and the more you share it, in 99.9% of the cases, the better off you're going to be. And that's why one of the reasons why Premier Pampton agreed to do his monthly visits on the program, Premier Access, so that you all can have direct access to him. Ask him the questions about the runnings of the country and so on, because there's political stuff that's at play here. Unfortunately, I saw someone recently one of the politicians issued something about stamp duty waivers and how, the Caymanians are not benefiting from this because they haven't changed the law. Well, that's his opinion, right? The facts actually speak and say something differently. And that's why I think the Premier's position, and I say this knowing him to be reserved sometimes and what he wants to say politically, but I think, maybe he has no intentions of running again. I don't really know, but I think he has to take a very different approach to setting the record straight. And I get that he can't respond to every single person. So he sits in these same groups that I was speaking with the previous caller about, where he's seeing people attacking him, attacking his government, making all sorts of allegations against them. Like, why is this Caymanian young man having to produce source of funds? Well, this is the government's fault. Why did we elect them if they can't? In my opinion, he should respond very matter-of-factly to those types of accusations and those types of statements, which are statements of opinion, and they are not fact. He doesn't do that. He sits right in those groups and listens to people, and he does not respond. And I suppose at the end of the day, he would be responding to everything and actually not getting anything done. So that's probably his position, is like, when would I have time to work if all I did was respond to every person who now, because they have social media and they have these WhatsApp group and they have a couple hundred people in their groups, they think that they have this platform to put out information, whether it's right or wrong or whatever. It doesn't really matter to them. Keep in mind, Kevin, that these people also do not play by the same rules. So we have some rules that we play by as part of official media. People who are not official media but have WhatsApp groups and their own Facebook pages and do whatever they want, they can call themselves media. They don't have a license. They don't have anything. And they feel like they can say and do whatever they want. And there's no rules of engagement for them at all, right? But when this thing came up with the stamp duty waivers, I'm like, why doesn't the Premier speak out about this? Because this is factually incorrect. This is someone trying to get political points over the stamp duty situation when nobody gave up more stamp duty waivers to big business and developers in this country than the previous administration. Yet one of their own is trying to criticize the current government, ironically enough, and saying that, oh, why aren't they giving stamp duty waivers to Caymanians? Well, ask yourself that question. Why aren't you giving it to Caymanians when you were in for the past 12 years and instead you were giving it to big developers? This government hasn't been giving it to developers. The previous progressive government did that. So, we need the accurate numbers, and I'm hoping to get an interview with the Premier where he can say, here are the factual numbers, because this isn't something that's up for debate. Through his financial, he's a minister now of financial finance, right? He can pull reports, have your civil servants do this, show what concessions were given over the past 10 years versus what you've given in 2 years, and who did it benefit? What percentage of those went to developers versus Caymanian homeowners? And you'll see that there's a stark difference between the previous administration and this administration. And this administration has been giving concessions that have actually benefited Caymanians as opposed to foreign developers and other developers. Those are facts. Now, when you sit back as a politician and don't put those facts out there, like Kevin just said, of course it's going to allow people to jump to their own conclusions and make any kind of statement as though it's actually a correct statement. Let me tell you how dangerous a platform can be when you have no concern for the truth. So, Salvin, I accept your position. Aliano and Alejandro also saying yes. media has to be, Selvin says the media has a responsibility to report accurately. Okay, so let me ask you a question then, Selvin. Someone, for example, like a Mario Rankin, who has word of mouth. He's not media. He calls himself a blogger. I think he has a business license as a consultant. Okay. I don't know if if you can get a business license as a blogger. I don't really know, but he doesn't have it as media. But yet a lot of you sit back and you listen to what he says and you accept what this man says is accurate and factual. Right now, he's on his page going on about some document that he claims is part of the Cayman International Schools. What's it called? Like their application process, right? Where they're asking you questions about, it's called the gingerbread person. And he said in his comment, this is absolutely unacceptable. And the conversation has to start. And this crap taken out of our schools here in the Cayman Islands. This isn't who we are. And I'll show you guys a little thing here in a second. And so I understand, again, I don't listen to him. So of course I am taking this with a grain of salt. But my understanding is that Mario actually has indicated to his listeners that this is something that is part of their application process at CIS. And other people, Clinton and others, have jumped on it. They take a very specific position in terms of the LGBT community and teaching anything about LGBTQ. So here's a gingerbread person. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it tries to make the distinction between a person's sexual orientation versus, let me see if I can just pull this up so I can actually see it properly, versus, how they're actually born. One second here. And so he has said that this is part of the registration process at CIS, or the application process, which actually it isn't. So does that matter to you guys that he got that very important fact wrong, but yet he's putting that out there? So the question here, it says gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, and sexual orientation. And so it has this little gingerbread person, and it says, what sex is, what expression is, what orientation is, and what identity is. And then it says, what is your understanding of this gingerbread person? Sexual identity, what is your pronoun? What does LGBTQIA plus represent? Based on the video and resource in class, explain what the difference is between gender identity, gender expression, and biological sex. Do you consider yourself an ally of the LGBT community, and why? The person said no. Do you feel that there are people in the CIS community who are not allies? If so, what ways can we increase acceptance in our community? So he's saying that this should not be taught in school. Well, I mean, parents can certainly have their opinion on this, one way or the other, but it wasn't part of any sort of application or orientation process. This was actually in a grade 10 classroom environment, because there were other people who were also of the opinion that, this was being taught to elementary school students. And so Clinton has a few words here about the post, and he says, how he was talking about this 2 months ago. And he says, looks like we, the Caymanian people, have to become an pro-nationalistic republic and step heavily on some toes. I'm not quite sure what that means. But, do you feel like anybody else has any responsibility to tell you the truth? Although you're sitting down, listening and taking in this information. Well, technically, they're not media at all. So where is the line drawn, Kevin?
Yeah, so that's one of the very interesting topics. I mean, you and I kind of touched on it recently, and I know maybe a year or so, Kenneth was on the show with me as well too, talking about how media has changed a whole lot. And so it is kind of questioning, what is media? Like, what do you classify as media? Because people nowadays, where they get their information from, is not the traditional way of watching a television broadcast.
And even when we got started, everybody else who considered themselves media, so that was Compass and CNS, and I don't know who else, but definitely those two, they tried to discredit this platform by saying, she's just a blogger. And I'm like, what does that mean? Do you know what a blogger is? What exactly does that mean? So they were trying to define what CMR did and who we were by their own archaic definition of what constitutes media.
Yep. And most people now are getting their news information, if you want to call it that, from social media in some form, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. That's where people are going for information. So now where's the line where it comes into, okay, what you do here, this podcast, the cold hard truth, that's not considered traditional media.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do have a website where we have actual news articles on our website. And I think that's where, if you have some sort of written form or some sort of other form, even like television stations, they have a website with written form.
Because a talk show or a podcast or podcast or whatever we're calling it these days, this talk show is not meant to be, news. I mean, we do cover some news items, but this is an opinion-based show, community-based show. We talk about a variety of different topics. We do a variety of different things. We educate people. We give people a platform to even call people out who've stolen their money or, given them bad service. So I think that this talk show, which is a part of the CMR brand, shouldn't be confused with the website, which is the media, the true media component of what we do.
Correct. Yes. And so that's kind of where the line is, I believe, at this stage, but it's always evolving. There's different ways of communicating, different communication channels. And this is one way to communicate news and information, but it's also a way to communicate your personal views and deal with other community related issues that media will never, ever touch. When would you ever hear of someone raising funds on a show for someone because they got mugged or dropped a wallet, not mugged, but dropped a wallet? You don't find a news organization doing that because that's not really their role. But at the same time, we serve a role to inform people of what's going on through the media, the more traditional media way, the having words and information put out there through the website and on our social media posts. But at the same time, this also serves as a community platform where we're also sharing opinions and letting people, have their voice heard, and using this for so many other things. Is they got one-stop shop for many different things, community related.
So Denver makes the following comment. He says, it's all the same politics. Every other government critiques and criticizes the other. I believe there's less big construction going on in the government than previous. Therefore, past government, so much big construction would have given more concession than today's government. Well, that's not factual at all. But the point is this: in 2 years, they've not given any concessions at all to construction companies. And you can't say in the past 2 years, they've not been any, not just current construction projects, but people come to you for concessions before they start building. So are you saying, Denver, that you believe that no one has approached this government about giving them concessions on future projects? I don't think that that's even possible. Of course, these big developers are coming forward trying to give concessions. The fact of the matter is, what we know factually for sure is they've not granted any in 2 years. And I don't think it has anything to do with the rate of construction. The last government granted quite a few in the time that they were there. So I don't know. Alejandro says, I need evidence they are not, should reach out to CIS. Sandra, I've already reached out to CIS. Mic drop, boom. Because when you're media, that's what you try to do. You try to reach out to the parties involved and say, what is this? Instead of just jumping on your platform and making a comment about, oh, that's part of their registration process, this, that, and the other thing. What CIS said is this was material that was taught in a year 10 classroom 2 years ago. So looks like word of mouth is a little bit late by 2 years as well. But there you go. Salvin says that these tax concessions are too arbitrary. Well, that's part of the problem with them for sure. And the finance minister has the power in law to pretty much give them at will, and cabinet can consider them, and it is very arbitrary. Ms. Brenda says, I feel like boards should be elected and not appointed. They're all appointed by the governor ultimately. Boards are appointed by the governor? Like those are political appointments, actually. I think that if we move to a mode where boards are elected, I mean, I guess it depends on how much money we want to spend on the election process. And again, that just becomes another popularity contest. I don't think the way that it's done now is the best way. It may not be the worst way, but I think because it's often political payback and election time, I don't see how that would be. I mean, I think the problem is this. Boards are put in place to oversee the current government's, like whatever their mandate is, to make sure that their mandate is being carried out, right? So if it's an immigration board, our mandate is we're not going to be doling out work permits left, right, and center. Okay, so that's a mandate. If you have people who are elected onto boards who do not necessarily mesh with the elected officials, right, and they don't even share the same desires or the same mandates, how would you ever get anything done at the board level? So that defies what boards are supposed to be doing. That's why the government has the power to put boards in place in the first place, because they are, by theory, electing people who have their interests at heart, because the civil service don't have their interests, and the civil service should be completely neutral, not have anybody's interests. But people will argue that the civil service has been politically tainted and they may prefer one grouping over another. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what people like Johan has made that point here several times on the program. He said, in his opinion, the civil servants are pro PPM government. They're anti this government. So they are putting roadblocks purposely in the way of this government to ensure that a lot of their mandates, a lot of their goals are not accomplished. That's up for debate. What I do know is if you had boards that were not appointed by the government, it would be that much worse. I think where the accountability has to come in, and we've talked about this before, is appointing board members in a way that makes sense. People who are qualified and not political favors. There should be some degree of criteria for the appointment of board members. Now, there are some boards that you have to apply, and only professionals are appointed to those boards, and they have to come with certain, professional requirements, et cetera, such as the OFREG board. The OFREG board is one of those boards, right? It doesn't mean that it's still not tainted with a degree of politicization in that process as well. And we've seen in past times, right, where people in OFREG shouldn't have been there, and they're sitting on the board.
And let's think about this realistically, Sandy, because, well, one, you're going to politicize. If boards were, elected somehow, it would be so politicized. It would be just crazy. But imagine you going to, vote for whoever you want on specific boards and X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. How long do you really want to spend in your election?
Oh my God, I wouldn't even. Honestly, if I had to pick board members, there's like over 100 boards in this country. I think I would not even show up to an election. Like, I got to be honest with you, I don't have that kind of time today. I'd be like, whatever.
Not to mention how much you would have to sit down
and to be fair, some of the boards have not even, to this day, some of the boards have not been reconstitutionalized. I don't know why this government hasn't. I think that the one that comes to mind is the one Kay's Foundation, right? Their board is the same board members who were there before. And so I don't understand why whoever, I don't know which minister is responsible for that. It might be Minister Andre, but I'm not 100% sure. Why hasn't that particular board been done? Only God knows, because the law says that it should happen. Denver says, but CMR claims that it brings the news to us first as it's happening. So CMR is more than a chat show, which we are thankful for. No, I mean, the cold hard truth. So let me be very, very clear. Cayman Mall Road is like the brand, social media, website, and the talk show. The talk show, the format of the talk show is we are not just a news show. We will bring you news. So right now, if we're sitting here and there's an accident in East End, there's a house burning down in North Side, we're going to get that information and we're going to tell you in real time. So Mr. Denver, you're absolutely correct about that. But I also want people to understand that on this show, there's opinions. That's why you guys are free to call in, share your opinion. Your opinion doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's just an opinion. Everybody has one, just like everybody has a what, right? And, it is what it is from that perspective. I share my opinion. I try to share facts. We try to educate people. So I think the point that I'm trying to make is it's more than just a news show. If you want just news, you can go on the website and you can read all the news articles, and 99% of that is going to be just news. That's it. So Salvin says, Sandra, you should be careful as to who you think should get the title of media, as when you began, you were looked at in a disdainful way, but now you're kicking their asses. So be careful. Well, I've addressed that already, Salvin, and there's a couple distinctions here. So a couple things. I've never actually defined myself because I don't have to. I think that people will certainly make that decision themselves. But the way in which CMR started out, so be very, very clear, we had a business license for media, right? Online newspaper is what we actually had a business license for technically. And what we started out with was a news website. The very first story that we put up was Bruce Blake and Canova Watson being arrested in relation to this CIFA situation, which they were just sentenced for the other day. That's a news story. So you cannot like us and want to call us a blogger because we're stepping on your toes, but how other people define you versus what you're actually doing are two very different things. So yes, they were up in their feelings and they wanted to refer to us as a blogger, but nothing that we actually did, because at that point we didn't even have a talk show. A blogger is more, I mean, I don't know, how would you define a blogger?
So yeah, no, a blogger is someone that just pretty much shares their views on different specific topic areas. So they actually have a written form, but it's just all personalized views.
Yeah.
But let me back it up. When I was at Cayman 27, 15 years ago, let me tell you something. When Wendy Ledger was kind of seen as the top news source in the Cayman Islands, on Cayman News Service, she too used to get a lot of people complaining that she was a blogger, because she would hit some very hard stories. Remember Mickey Mouse exposing all sorts of different things and scandals and all sorts of stuff on her platform, and people used to fill up the comment section. At the time, she was also getting so much information. Oh, she is just a blogger. She's just, you know, on a mission X, Y, and Z. So people that hit hard topics often get criticized, but you know what? People who are true journalists, media folks, they have thicker skin than that, and they don't necessarily listen to all that noise.
Yeah. And you know, you have to ask yourself as well, what is it that the person or whatever is actually doing, right? So and also maybe how they define themselves. So someone, for example, like Mario, he actually defines himself as a blogger. If you go on his social media page, and that's all he has is social media, right? He doesn't have a website. He's not writing news articles. He doesn't go to, you know, he doesn't bother to go to any press conferences. I don't know if he would be invited or not, because there are certain things that you have to do in order to get that GIS press pass. Here's the thing. Even when we didn't have the GIS press pass, we had done all of those things. So we had the business license. We were registered with the court in terms of being media. So that's why I can go and look at any court file. And all of those things were done way before the actual elected government, the last administration in particular, although they were refusing to acknowledge us as media, except when they wanted to. So they invited us to some things. So to be very clear, during COVID, they wouldn't invite us to that stuff. But there were other things that they would invite us to that made them look good. Or that I guess they wanted us to have access to.
On Mario Rankin specifically, I wouldn't even classify him as a blogger because he's not really writing any opinion-based things. However, what I would classify him as is an aspiring, oh goodness, the word was just in my influencer. That's what I would, because you know, you have influencers that are doing, I mean, some influencers are so powerful that they got millions of followers. He doesn't have that type of following, so that's why I wouldn't consider him an influencer. He's more a community activist / an aspiring influencer. He wants to pick up traction through his platform. That's what I would classify him as. You know, you never know. One day he might say, get enough followers and you know, eventually become an influencer. Now, what defines you? I would say, I don't know what that magic number is of how much people you have to have, or how many followers you have to be an influencer. Maybe 1 million. I don't know. I think that might be, if I had to pick a number, if someone forced me to give a number, I would say if you have about 1 million followers, you are considered an influencer at that stage, because you really got a lot of people, a lot of eyeballs.
Well, I think in Cayman, obviously, you wouldn't need
no, not in Cayman. No.
But and I think that, I think he's in some kind of a hybrid mode. Like I don't try to define him. I mean, he says that he's a blogger, so I'll go with that. But what he does, I don't necessarily understand what he does. I think he, if he feels like doing something today, he feels like posting something, he feels like having a show. Like there's no level of consistency really to what he does. You know what I mean? The days that he feels like he's going to have something to say, then he says it. And, I guess that's everybody's prerogative. The days that he doesn't want to say something, he doesn't. So from my perspective, we're here every day churning out news stories, right? Some are investigative. Some are government press releases. They want to get the information out there. So we're happy to certainly put those out there kind of on their behalf. And then, this talk show obviously has, like I said, a very kind of different, it's a talk show. So, I don't necessarily want people defining me. So I'm not trying to define him. I use the term blogger because that's what he's called himself. And I think a lot of people, I found it interesting when people referring to us as a blogger. And then I would say, well, what is a blogger? And they couldn't even tell me what a blogger was. So I'm like, how can you use the term blogger to define or explain what CMR does, and you yourself don't even understand what a blogger is? So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. So yeah. It is what it is. Let me see here now. We're going to start to wrap up the program just a little bit. Right. So Aliana says they're all called grifters. Who? Miss Yasmin says, watching your show every morning, I know is what's going on in the island. Thank you, Sandy. I have learned a lot. Miss Brenda says, when elected MPs select their boards, they're ultimately appointed by the governor, whether they meet the criteria or not, sadly. Well, I think you have to be careful how you say that, because when people say, oh, they're appointed by the governor, people might think that process means that it's the governor making the selection. So it's the appointments, like the term appointment means that it is, they are appointed by the elected officials. The governor might have a process of formally signing a document to say, okay, just like he does when the government forms. He doesn't appoint the government. The government works it out amongst themselves, and they go to him and say, okay, we have the majority. They'll show him a little document saying everybody's agreed to form this government. And he says, okay, you guys are the first ones to come to me with the majority. I will then appoint you by signing that official document constitutionally as the new government. But you wouldn't say the governor appoints the political arm or the political party of the day. He doesn't do that. It's just a formality. So his so-called appointment is just signing on a piece of paper. Just like he appoints every minister. It's not him saying, oh, Sabrina Turner, I want you to be Minister of Health. No, that's worked out amongst the group, and they give him this information, and then they go through the formality, if you will, of having this ceremony where they are, I forget what it's called now, but they're given their, what's it called, Kevin? Can you remember what they're given? There's an actual constitutional term for it, but they're giving whatever that document is in order for them to become a minister. So like John, when he became minister the other day, he went through that whole process. Now, listen, this is so interesting, right? Back in August the 16th of 2019, we did a whole article on Is Cayman Ma wrote a blog? And there's a whole article on it. You can go and read it. We talked about what blogging means. I'm actually going to share this link with you guys because, we always seem to come full circle with a lot of these discussions and a lot of these questions. We've been here before. We've had it before. Is CMR a blog?
And that's part of the whole thing. We have to repeat ourselves over and over and over again because, there might have been a large percentage of the people that were not watching, or, you want to keep on, repeating to let people or remind people or inform people of, what we are, so they can get that message across.
Yeah. And so here again, the question is, this came in as a Q&A because we do a Q&A segment on the website as well. And it says, I read some comments on CNS that Cayman Mall Road is a blog and that you're not a journalist or newspaper. Is that true? What qualifications are required to be a journalist in the Cayman Islands? So we answered this back in 2019, and this is what was said at the time. I'll just read it. It says, let's start with the last question first. There are no qualifications to be a journalist in this jurisdiction per se. There's some procedures if you wish to obtain GIS press releases and court access as a journalist, all of which CMR has satisfied. Further, CMR contributor Sandra Hill has both an academic writing background and experience in news media. And I think a lot of people, when they try to discredit you, they're like, oh, well, she doesn't have an experience as a journalist. Well, first of all, how did you know that? And that wasn't actually correct. But what makes, and this is where, as Caymanians, we are all too willing to tear down our own people first, right? So what makes any journalist that has fulfilled that role here in the Cayman Islands any more qualified or different than someone, say, such as myself? I'll wait for somebody to give me an answer on that one. So, people who've come here. Did Kevin Morales have a journalist background? I mean, Kevin, you might know some of these people. I don't really know.
I do know Kevin Morales, and he did not come with a whole lot of journalistic background. I think he was a sports writer, if I remember correctly, when he first came, and then he got hired as a news reporter at Cayman 27.
Okay.
And then when Jason had resigned and left, he became the sports anchor at Cayman 27, and then eventually news director when everything blew up at Cayman 27.
So he just learned how to do all that on the job.
Yep. In fact, he had no television experience either. That was all new for him. He learned on the job.
And Rejma, did she have TV experience in Trinidad before she came here?
Rejma came after me. I had left by then, so I don't know much of her history. I believe she had a print background, but I can't say that for certain. But yeah.
So I mean, we accept people. We don't know what Wendy's background is. I mean, she could tell us that she was writing for the BBC for all we would know. I think that Wendy does have some sort of a history of writing. I don't know if she has any formal qualifications, which back in the day, it wasn't necessary for you to even have a formal qualification in writing per se. Like, you just
in the States where I am, you don't have to have a formal education to be a journalist either. You simply got to wow the people in your interview panel if you get to score one. If you have the personality, they're hiring your personality really, and then they're going to train you on how to tell stories based on that news organization's way of telling stories. Because again, if you look at Fox News versus CNN versus they all have a different way of doing stories. So they'll do on the job training, and you if you fit in, you fit in.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of how it was when I worked at the school newspaper at USF. I mean, students came in, and if you had an interest in journalism, that was kind of like your training ground, and you could see how stories are written. You had more senior, writers and journalists and other people. And this is back in the day when they put the newspaper together in like segments and stuff. And of course, back then, you did what you had to. You did what you had to kind of just learn the ropes, depending on where exactly in the world of journalism you were interested. What publication you wanted to do. Some people might specialize in something like sports and whatever. So it looks like she was just to answer the question about Resma, she was actually a senior reporter at the Guardian Media Company in Trinidad.
Okay, yeah, I felt she had some experience before she came. I was not around when she came. I was already gone from Cayman 27 at the time. But no,
she had no writing. I think she had no TV experience.
No TV experience. Yeah, so she was more on the writing base. And look at my degree. My degree is communication. I also studied education, so I could teach or something in the communication field. And the route that I happened to take was more on the journalistic side of things. So I first started off at Radio Cayman, and then that was kind of short-lived before I had gotten the first scholarship from the TV station. And so and this was while I was in university, so I got kind of plugged in at the TV station and started to get my television experience and absolutely loved it and stayed in that for most of my professional career. I would say I was in that for 9.5 years up until Cayman 27 was sold so many different times, and that was that. And then I left, and instead of being on a journalistic side, I went and crossed onto the more public relations side, and that's when I ended up going to the Polk County government as the spokesperson for public safety. Then the health department, again, just being a spokesperson. So I was not a health expert, but I was the person to carry the expert's message. And then now I'm at USF. And so this, as a communication person, I could do so many different, because it's such a wide field. Communication is, so wide. There's so many different things that I could get into. With my degree, I could have minored in something like, let's say, photography or something like that, or something different. As a whole different route, but same degree under communication. But I would not want to narrow my scope in my tertiary education to just journalism, because that just sticks you in journalism. I wouldn't want that.
Yeah, because you could have. I mean, there are people who that's their like specific area of study. So, I mean, I kind of dabbled in it. Like I said, I wrote at the school newspaper, but again, my ultimate goal was actually law school. But I did speech comm as my minor. And for my major, I did professional technical writing, which a lot of people like, what the heck is a professional technical writer? They can do a lot of different things. It's also a very, very broad, degree that you can use a lot. You can do a lot of things with. But one of the things that they do that a lot of people are like, oh, okay, like when they think about it, professional technical writers actually, believe it or not, they write all the manuals that you see. So anytime you pick up a manual on how to use something, someone who's a professional technical writer actually wrote that manual. So they're meant to take complex issues or equipment or whatever and try to put it together and break it down in a way that is easier for perhaps the average person to understand. But a lot of those people cross over into journalism and writing books and doing other things. I took that study up to prepare myself for law school, because you have to be a pretty good writer in order to survive law school, to get in as well as to survive law school. So we've gone off topic a little bit here. We did not get to talk about what I was going to talk about, which is this 16-year-old that's pregnant on the BRAC. So let's go at that issue tomorrow. It's an important one. So I didn't want to shortchange it. When I saw the 10 o'clock hour come around, I thought, ooh, we're going to run out of time on it. And I really want to dedicate some time to it. So let's spend some time on that topic tomorrow. I think we have some serious concerns in this issue in this country. My apologies. When a 15-year-old is getting pregnant by a man in his 20s. And a lot of people are saying that they see nothing wrong with that. To me, that's quite shocking.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, appreciate you always being willing to jump in on the conversation. And appreciate your contributions always.
My pleasure. You all have a beautiful day.
Okay, thanks very much. And a beautiful day to all of you out there listening. We still held on to over 200 people between Facebook and YouTube, so appreciate it. I know as we get past the 10:30 hour, a lot of you are at work. So appreciate your contributions. And, at the end of the day, this platform is here for the people, right? So I want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear, we don't have to agree. I mean, this isn't a party where we're going to be agreeing and everything. And there's no need to feel any particular way because we don't agree. That's healthy, having debate and discussion, as long as we keep it respectful, that's the most important thing. And that's the way that we're going to go with it. So no need to agree. Facts are facts and opinions are opinions. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. And, it's open for discussion. So you guys have a fantastic day. My shoulder's feeling a little bit better today. You probably noticed that I wasn't quite messing with it as much. So it is feeling better. I put an ice pack on it a couple times yesterday. I think I might have to go and get a massage sorted out as well. But yes, it's feeling somewhat better. But continue to prioritize your health and wellness, folks. That's the most important thing. I'm out there trying to, get a little bit of exercise. I want to start like yoga and Tai Chi and these things that are not, I'm not going to say they're not as challenging, because trust me, if you've ever done yoga, That requires a whole other level of strength, but they challenge the body in different ways, Pilates and this sort of thing. Very, very good for you and good for the body. So I'm going to get back on the pickleball court, or I'm going to get into pickleball and really start playing a lot more. And I'm doing a few other things. I want to encourage all of you to prioritize your health and wellness, because guess what? It doesn't matter what you have in this world. You can have all the money in the world. You can have, everything that you think you want, but without your health and wellness, none of it matters. So prioritize that. You can't put a price tag on your health and wellness. So folks, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:30. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We don't have any guests lined up. I've got a couple interviews that I'm doing today, including one over at UCCI and a couple other things. So I'll get those done. And then we will connect tomorrow. We'll talk about the teenage pregnancy issue in this country. People are telling me it's far worse than I recognize. Lord have mercy. What a hot mess. So tune in, 7:30. You guys have a blessed day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.